The story kicks off in the middle of Seoul, but this isn't the city we know. The entire future of the capital has been dropped onto the shoulders of just one man. Emotional hook, the world's gone to hell, the heroes have failed, and the only person left standing is gasping for air in the rubble. Meet Jung Shiwon, the guildmaster of Jungwa, looking absolutely battered as he struggles to catch his breath. Opposite him stands a lone figure in black, surrounded by the bodies of fallen hunters and the ruins of the city. The survivors watching from the shadows can't believe their eyes. The legendary Jungwa Guild has been completely wiped out. The man in the hood is Shin Kang-gu, labeled as the public enemy of the entire world, and he looks ready to finish what he started. Shiwon is on his knees, trembling with exhaustion as blood drips onto the cold stone beneath him. He curses Kang-gu, claiming that because of this meaningless war he started, every innocent person is suffering. Shiwon screams about how the world is being destroyed because of evil, like the man standing before him. Kang-gu just lets out a cold, mocking smirk, finding the whole hero speech absolutely pathetic. He stares Shiwon down with icy eyes, asking him if he seriously thinks he's some kind of messenger of justice. Shiwon loses it, his hands glowing with a violent red energy, as he refuses to let a villain lecture him on morality. He blasts out a massive surge of power, claiming he's the only one fighting for the sake of humanity. The citizens watch in terror, hoping their hero can finally put an end to the nightmare. Children are weeping in their parents' arms, terrified of the monster they think Kang-gu has become. The crowd starts chanting Shiwon's name, their voices rising in a desperate plea for him to win. Shiwon absorbs their hope, his expression hardening as a glowing hollow of light forms behind his head. He channels a massive magic circle into his palm, fueled by the cheers of the people who still believe in him. He vows that as long as they believe, he won't be taken down by any cost. A blinding beam of light erupts from the circle, tearing through the air directly toward Kang-gu. Kang-gu's eyes widen as the sheer pressure of the attack forces him into a defensive stance. The impact is massive, sending a shockwave that rattles the surrounding buildings and throws dust into the air. As the smoke clears, the two are locked in a tense standoff, neither willing to give an inch. Shiwon stands tall, looking down at his opponent like a god judging a sinner. Kang-gu is coughing up blood, his body reaching its limit, but his eyes are still filled with pure defiance. The crowd goes wild, thinking the villain is finally on his last legs. They scream for Shiwon to finish him off, calling Kang-gu every name in the book as they cheer for his execution. Their fists are raised, a collective roar for the villain to be purged from the world once and for all. The words "kill him" echo through the ruins like a death sentence. Shiwon hovers over the kneeling Kang-gu, looking like a savior about to deliver a mercy kill. Shiwon leans in, his voice cold as he tells Kang-gu that not a single soul in this world wants him to live. He gathers every ounce of his remaining mana into a final crushing spell. Kang-gu can barely move, his muscles seizing up as the purple light of the spell begins to envelop him. Shiwon declares that this is the absolute end for the man who tried to stand against him. With a violent burst of energy, Kang-gu is blasted back, blood spraying from his mouth as the attack hits home. He falls into the abyss of the crumbling city, his body disappearing into the rubble and dust. Shiwon stands alone in the silence, his white coat fluttering in the wind as he takes a breath of victory. He turns to the remaining survivors with a bright fake smile, announcing that all their hard work has finally paid off. He raises a finger to the sky, promising that perfect freedom is finally going to descend upon the land. The people are overjoyed, weeping with relief because they think they've finally been saved. But as Shiwon laughs, the symbols in the sky start to turn a deep, ominous red. A single spark of crimson light shoots up into the clouds, turning the entire atmosphere into a bloody haze. Suddenly, the ground starts to shake, and a dark, sinister presence begins to leak through the sky. A massive, demonic hand reaches out from the clouds, casting a shadow of pure death over the hero and his people. The survivors freeze, the realization hitting them: this isn't freedom, it's a trap. The crowd descends into chaos, screaming for their lives as the massive hand begins to crush everything in its path. Shiwon laughs like a maniac, revealing his true colors as he announces the descent of the Demon King. He claims it's true peace, but those on the ground know it's just total tyranny. Deep in the rubble, a bloodied Kang-gu watches the world burn, cursing the fact that he was right all along. Shiwon looks down at him, calling him an insect and telling him to watch the just world he's created. He looks completely unhinged, his eyes wide with madness as the city is swallowed by fire. And just like that, everything starts to fade into white. The entire landscape is torn apart, leaving nothing but dust and echoes. The world is gone, perished. Meta transition. A message appears on a screen. It's the end of a web novel titled The Life of a Villain Turned Savior. We see hands flying across a keyboard. This entire world-ending tragedy was just a story written by an author, but the author knows he's messed up. He's just crushed every expectation his readers had. The ending was so dark and depressing that the fans are absolutely losing their minds in the comments. In the story, the hero Zhang Xiwan was nothing more than a puppet for the Demon King. He and his 13 stars were never the protectors of humanity. They were its greatest threat. They were top-level evils who played the world for fools. The author sits in his dark room, thinking about how fiction is just a mirror reflecting the ugliness of reality. He looks at a funeral photo on his desk. His inspiration for this twisted world came from his own traumatic past. He remembers seeing the authorities cover up violence in school, realizing that power can flip good and evil whenever it wants. He tried to put that harsh truth into his novel, but the readers aren't having it. The comment section is a total war zone, with people calling him a hack and telling him he should just quit writing forever. He sighs, feeling the weight of the hate, realizing he can't please everyone. He shuts down the tab, his messy apartment reflecting his own scattered mental state. He collapses onto his bed, trying to ignore the digital voices telling him he's garbage. He covers his eyes, the exhaustion of being a failed writer finally catching up to him. One comment sticks in his head. Someone called him a henchman for destroying the reader's world. He knows he can't even rewrite it now. The damage is done. He decides to just sleep it off, hoping the world looks a bit better in the morning. But his sleep is interrupted by a strange metallic noise that shouldn't be in his apartment. He hears the clanking of metal and the groans of people in pain. He opens his eyes and realizes he's no longer in his bedroom. He's in a dark, damp cave filled with men in uniforms. The floor isn't his mattress. It's cold, hard stone. Suddenly, a guard kicks someone nearby, screaming about the grace of eclipse. The author watches in horror as people are being beaten and treated like animals. He thinks he's just having a nightmare where his own characters are coming to haunt him. A guard towers over him, calling him a human scumbag and telling him to get back to work. The guard swings a heavy fist, and the pain is way too vivid for a dream. He looks around and sees a massive mining operation. This is the labor camp from his novel. He hears footsteps approaching, heavy and authoritative. A guard with cold eyes glares down at him, looking like he's ready to kill. The guard mocks him for not lasting a second, but the author is too busy wondering why he can feel every bruise. Another guard tells his partner to ease up, but only because they have a quota to fill. They talk about him like he's an object, just another body to throw into the mines. The realization starts to sink in. The pain, the smell, the atmosphere. This is all real. He looks down at his own hands and notices they aren't his. They're younger, calloused, and covered in dirt. The guard walks away, promising a beating later if he doesn't start mining. Suddenly, a fellow inmate rushes over, looking terrified and asking if he's okay. The inmate calls him Kangu, and the author freezes. He realizes with a jolt of terror that he's transmigrated into the body of the minor villain he created. He touches the ground, and as he does, a strange sensation begins to pulse through his fingertips. He feels a surge of energy mana. It shouldn't be this easy to sense. A blue aura erupts around him, lighting up the dark cavern in a brilliant flash. He realizes he has the power to absorb mana at will, a rare and dangerous trait. This is congenital mana hypersensitivity, a condition he wrote for this character as a fatal flaw. He looks at his reflection in a pool of water, seeing the face of Shin Kangu staring back at him. He's horrified. Out of all the characters, he ended up as the one who dies first. But then, he starts to laugh. If he's the author, he knows every secret of this world. He calculates the timeline. He's currently 5 years before the end of the world. He thinks that if he had possessed the hero Xiwan, life would be easy. He'd be revered as a savior while secretly planning the apocalypse. But in this body, he's destined to be crushed when the Demon King arrives. He sees the other prisoners kneeling, their spirits broken by the guards. He knows that unless he changes the ending he wrote, he's going to die a pathetic death. He stands up, his resolve hardening as he looks at the task ahead. The good news is, he's the one who built this prison, metaphorically and literally. He looks up with a sharp, determined gaze. He knows exactly how to escape this place. As he picks up a mana stone, he realizes that possessing this body has given him all of Shin Kangu's memories and instincts. He feels the character's past flowing through him, merging with his own author knowledge. He checks his system window, level 10, assassin class, and currently no constellation supporting him. He's physically weak, gasping for air just from sitting up too fast. He curses himself for giving a villain such a terrible weakness like mana hypersensitivity, but he knows this stone is his ticket out. It's the only way to kickstart his plan. The timid inmate from before approaches him again, looking genuinely worried. He asks if Kangu is really okay, his voice trembling with fear. Kongu tells him to relax, but the inmate suggests they should just ask the guards for a break. Kongu scoffs, knowing the people in charge don't have a shred of mercy in them. He looks at the insignia on the wall, the 3 swords of the criminal organization Eclipse. It's a symbol of pure greed and violence that he himself designed. This is an illegal detention center where rookie hunters are treated like livestock. Anyone who can use even a bit of mana is dragged here and forced to mine until they break. The strong exploit the weak, and the weak die in the shadows of the mana crystals. Kongu tells the inmate to focus on his own work and ignore him. The inmate asks if he's thinking of escaping, and Kongu tells him to shut up before a guard hears him. He warns the guy not to do anything reckless, knowing what the guards do to runners. As the guy walks away, Kongu realizes this inmate was the motif for his real-life friend who died. He has to save him. But for now, he has to keep his head down. He can't rewrite the story if he's dead. The sound of picks hitting stone echoes through the cave like a rhythmic heartbeat. He tells himself that everything he does from now on is for the sake of his own escape. The scale of the operation is massive, with hundreds of slaves working under the watchful eyes of armed wardens. Kongu hauls a cart of crystals, playing the part of the obedient prisoner while scouting the exits. Suddenly, a sickening thud rings out, followed by a scream of pain. Kongu stops, his eyes narrowing as he looks back at the source of the noise. A guard has knocked the timid inmate to the ground, standing over him with a cold blade drawn. He tells the rest of the prisoners to watch carefully, using the poor guy as an example. The guard raises his sword, intending to make the inmate take responsibility for being slow. With a brutal swing, he slashes the man, blood spraying onto the cave floor. The other prisoners look away in terror, too scared to even breathe as the guard continues his assault. Blood pools on the stone, and the inmate's hand twitches as he gasps for life. Kongu watches from the shadows, his expression unreadable as he sees his friend being butchered. A final splat of blood hits the wall as the guard finishes his cruel work. The inmate lies still, his life fading away in the dark. Kongu walks up to the body. He glares at the guard, his aura shifting from a weak prisoner to something far more dangerous. The guard smirks, threatening to kill Kongu next since there's no one around to stop him. Kongu coldly claims he couldn't care less about the guy dying, putting on a front to get closer. He casually asks the guard to let him go to the toilet, a request so mundane it catches the guard off guard. The guard laughs, mocking him for pissing himself after seeing a little blood. He agrees to lead him away, thinking Kongu is just a terrified coward. Kongu follows him, his eyes locked on the guard's back like a predator stalking its prey. They reach a secluded hallway near the restrooms, and the guard gives him exactly 1 minute. He warns Kongu that if he takes any longer, this hallway will become his grave. Kongu enters the room, finding 2 other guards already dead on the floor. Someone else is also planning something. The bodies are cold, and the scene is chaotic. He steps over them, his footsteps silent as he reaches his destination. He searches the walls, knowing there's a secret mechanism hidden right around here. Outside, the guard starts counting down, the numbers echoing through the door like a ticking bomb. Kongu finds the hidden latch and smiles. He knew his own designs wouldn't fail him. He uses a small shard of metal to slice his own hand, letting the blood drip onto the floor. He needs the blood to activate a specific ritual circle hidden under the tiles. The guard is down to 30 seconds, his voice growing more impatient and aggressive. Kongu draws a complex seal in blood, a perfect star within a circle, calling out to the void. The ritual begins to glow with a faint, ghostly blue light. He whispers into the empty air, knowing that they are watching him from the other side. He addresses a constellation, knowing they crave tragedies and desperate trials. The guard screams that his time is up, kicking the door open with a loud bang. Kongu stands tall, asking the unseen being if they aren't curious how a low level like him found them. He explains the original plot of the novel, knowing the constellation is listening. In the original story, this entity wouldn't have appeared for years, but Kongu is forcing their hand, offering them something they can't refuse. He talks about the hope the world is looking for, and how it will slip away if they don't act now. He uses the very words he wrote to persuade the divine being. He promises to become the ultimate entertainment they've been looking for. He claims he's the only one who can use their abilities to their maximum potential. The air crackles with lightning as a massive presence finally manifests in the room. This is the main constellation that was supposed to contract with the villain much later, the Dimension Looter. The name appears in the air, a title that strikes fear into the very fabric of reality. The energy surges into Kongu's body, the sheer power nearly tearing him apart. But the entity is intrigued, granting him their power for a brief moment to see what he can do. A blinding starburst of mana fills the hallway, pushing back the shadows. His status screen flickers as the contract is established, unlocking skills he shouldn't have at this level. The guard throws a punch, his fist hitting the wall with a loud crack as Kangoo disappears. The guard is furious, wondering how a piss-pants prisoner just vanished into thin air. He stalks down the hallway, searching for any sign of his target. The guard senses the killing intent and spins around, but he's too slow. Kangoo is a blur of motion, moving with a speed that defies human limits. The system reveals the special trait of his new contract, maximum proficiency. Even a level 1 short-distance leap is suddenly boosted. The skill level hits max instantly, allowing him to teleport through space like a ghost. He appears behind the guard, his eyes glowing with a cold blue mana. He activates Traverse Teleportation, another high-tier skill now at his command. The guard can only see a streak of light as Kangoo maneuvers around him. The terror on the guard's face is priceless as he realizes he's no longer the hunter. The hallway is empty 1 second, and the next, death is standing right behind him, appearing on his blind side. A sharp, metallic schlink echoes through the hall as Kangoo strikes, the man's arrogant face twisting in pain and disbelief, blood bubbling in his throat as he realizes he's been defeated by a scumbag. With one clean motion, Kangoo snaps the man's neck and lets the body drop. The thud of the guard hitting the floor is the final sound of his life. Kangoo looks down at his hand. He decides that today is the day he's finally leaving this hellhole. The constellation whispers that he's interesting, clearly enjoying the sudden violence. The contract is officially complete. The author and the looter are now one. He looks back toward the mines, telling his dead friend that he's finally been avenged. He takes the guard's weapon and gear, equipping himself for the escape. The system rings with a notification. A new weapon has been registered. Kangoo stands tall, a dark silhouette against the light, vowing that from now on, he's never looking back. The moon hangs high over the detention center, casting a cold glow on the barbed wire. The silence of the night is about to be broken by a fire that will burn the whole place down. He pours fuel over a pile of supplies, the liquid splashing loudly in the quiet corridor. Step 1 of his plan is complete. He's secured a Rank 2 warden's uniform to act as a disguise. Step 2 is arson. He flicks a lighter, the small flame reflecting in his cold eyes. He walks away as the building explodes into flames behind him, looking like a true villain. The alarms go off, and guards rush toward Building 18, screaming about the fire. Chaos erupts as they try to call the fire department, completely distracted from the prisoners. Booted feet stomp through the compound as the search for the arsonist begins. A high-ranking guard orders everyone to follow the emergency manual immediately. He shouts for a team to head toward the crematorium, thinking that's where the threat is. Kangoo casually slips into a transport vehicle, his new uniform blending him in perfectly. He tells the driver to hurry up, his voice authoritative and calm. The driver looks in the rearview mirror, slightly suspicious of this new Rank 2 warden. He asks if he was the one who replaced the regular guy in charge of their unit. Kangoo rolls with it, claiming someone just escaped from the burning building. He tells the driver the runner went northwest through the fence, giving him fake intel. He asks why they haven't moved yet, his tone sharp enough to make the driver nervous. The driver apologizes and floors it, the engine roaring as they speed toward the exit. Kangoo knows the path northwest leads directly to Chungmyeong Mountain. At first glance, the mountain looks like a perfect escape route because it's dark and unguarded, but in reality, that mountain is a death trap designed by Eclipse to catch runners. It's filled with magical traps and sensors that will tear an unequipped person to shreds. But Kangoo has the exclusive information only a warden or an author would know. He tells the driver that they need to intercept the runner on the mountain and just bring back a corpse. The driver nods, completely fooled by the MC's cold-blooded demeanor. They reach the front gate, and the guard on duty shouts for cigarettes before letting them through. The gate opens, and the guard waves them through, thinking everything is clear. Kangoo's eyes narrow. The first part of the escape is finally over. He looks back at the blood-stained walls of the prison one last time. The vehicle speeds down a winding mountain road, surrounded by dense, dark forest. The driver tries to make small talk, saying the warden must be tired from the chaos in the building. Kangoo agrees, claiming it would be easier to just kill all the inmates since they won't listen. The driver laughs, calling the hunters losers, trying to bond over their cruelty. Kangoo's expression doesn't change, but his eyes are filled with a silent, deadly promise. The driver asks how long he's been on duty in Building 18, digging for more info. The MC's face is half hidden in shadow, his silence making the air in the truck go cold. He says he arrived the day before yesterday and worked in Unit 9. The driver's eyes widen in the mirror as he realizes something is very wrong. He tells Kangoo that Unit 9 doesn't even exist, he's just caught the warden in a lie. The truck swerves as the tension inside reaches a breaking point. Kangoo just smirks, admitting the truth without any fear. He draws his blade in a single fluid motion, the metal gleaming in the dim light. He tells the driver that he lied for one simple reason, to kill trash like him. The driver screams in terror as the blade flashes through the air. Kangoo strikes with lethal precision, ending the man's life before he can even reach for his own weapon. He declares he's just cleaning up the world as blood splatters across the dashboard. The truck loses control, careening off the road and crashing into the underbrush. It tumbles down a slope, metal crunching and glass shattering in the dark, the burning wreckage behind him lighting up the forest. A guard emerges, his hands wreathed in fire, looking absolutely livid. The guard lunges, but Kangoo uses his assassin skills to sidestep the attack effortlessly. The guard screams about being tricked, his mana flaring as he prepares a massive blast. A pillar of fire erupts, lighting up the entire mountainside with a violent roar, but when the smoke clears, the target is nowhere to be found. The guard laughs, thinking he's won, but then he senses something behind him and freezes. In the mirror of a nearby wreck, he sees a shadow crouching in the dark. A blur of blue mana streaks toward him, faster than his eyes can follow. Kangoo appears directly above him, his sword coming down like a guillotine. The guard looks up in sheer terror as the blade passes right through his defenses. A massive spray of blood paints the forest red, the guard's life ending instantly. Kangoo stands over the body, his face cold and covered in splatters of blood. The guard lets out one final, pathetic groan before going completely silent. The wreckage of the truck is the only thing making noise in the quiet woods. Blue sparks of mana flicker around his eyes, his hypersensitivity is kicking in again. He curses, wondering if he used too much power for such a low-level fight. Suddenly, he hears the roar of an engine approaching from the distance. Bright headlights cut through the trees, heading straight for the crash site. He realizes Eclipse has sent a patrol. This is the last hurdle before he's truly free. He slides down a steep embankment, trying to put as much distance between him and the road as possible. His feet kick up dirt as he moves with desperate speed through the undergrowth. He lands at the base of a cliff, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He huddles in the shadows, trying to suppress his mana signature so they can't track him. A voice echoes from above, saying it's impressive that a low-level managed to kill 2 wardens. A hunter with a massive axe jumps down, landing with a heavy thud right in front of him. Kangoo notices a red mark glowing above the man's head. He's in a contract with a constellation. He wonders what kind of power this guy has, and if he can actually take him on in his current state. The system reveals the hunter's patron, Skillful Connector, a constellation that can track mana anywhere. Kangoo realizes that's how they found him so easily despite the fire and the crash, but instead of being scared, he starts to smile, which catches the hunter off guard. He can see the red mark pulsing, a clear signal that this target is ripe for the taking. The system confirms his secret third ability. Killing a hunter allows him to loot their constellation. The hunter looks cocky, thinking he's about to collect an easy bounty. A notification pops up in front of Kangoo's eyes. You are able to loot this target. He grips his blade, his grin turning predatory as he prepares to use constellation loot for the very first time. He knows the level gap is insane, so a direct head-on fight is a one-way ticket to a coffin. He stays low, his mind racing as he prepares to turn the environment against his enemy. Kangoo decides to play it smart by drawing the tracker into a trap where levels won't matter as much as precision. The tracker just laughs, looking down at Kangoo like he's some pathetic bug he's about to crush. He mocks the MC, telling him to go ahead and try to hide, acting like this is all just a game. The tracker stalks through the brush, thinking he's the one in control of the hunt. He scans the area, his arrogance making him blind to the subtle shifts in the shadows around him. Suddenly, his mana-tracking ability blips and lunges forward with a crazed grin, thinking he's found his mark. He puts everything into a vertical strike, shouting as he prepares to end Kangoo right there. The ground shatters under the weight of the blow, but all he hits is a solid tree trunk. He looks around in confusion, wondering where the rat disappeared to this time. In a flash of red light, the atmosphere shifts. The prey has finally made his move. Kangoo appears from the blind spot, plunging his blade into the tracker's back as blood sprays into the night. The tracker gasps in disbelief, never imagining a low level would actually dare to close the distance like this. Kangoo stares him down, telling him that looking down on his opponent was his final mistake. He twists the blade, finishing the job with cold, surgical efficiency. The tracker collapses, his body hitting the dirt as the light fades from his eyes. The system erupts with notifications, the target is dead, and the contract with Skillful Connector has been seized. The looted constellation is now trapped under the control of Kangoo's dimension looter, unable to escape. Massive amounts of data and energy flood Kangoo's vision as the transfer begins. All the abilities of the skillful connector are officially transferred to our boy. He's just unlocked permanent mana tracking, night vision, and boosted teleportation, all at max level. He takes a deep breath, exhausted but satisfied that his gamble actually paid off. He pulses his new mana tracking skill, confirming that there are no more pursuers left in the immediate area. Suddenly, his body rejects the sudden influx of power, and he's hit with a wave of intense pain. He drops to his knees, coughing up blood as his mana hypersensitivity starts to tear him apart from the inside. The ground is stained red as he struggles to stay conscious in the middle of the dark woods. He looks at his blood-soaked hands, wondering if he pushed his new body too far too fast. His body is a wreck, and he knows that if he pushes it any further, he's literally going to drop dead. He forces himself to stand, knowing he needs to find a safe place to hide before dawn. He limps toward the edge of a road, hearing the rumble of a heavy engine approaching. He stares down at the asphalt, knowing this is his only chance to get out of the mountain range. A truck carrying mana-purifying sand is rolling by, a perfect place to bury himself and disappear. He runs with his remaining strength, his feet hitting the pavement in a desperate sprint. He leaps from the cliffside, timing it perfectly as the truck passes beneath him. He lands with a heavy thud in the bed of the truck, the sand cushioning his fall. He lets out a long sigh of relief, watching the mountain fade into the distance. He reflects on the fact that he's already killed 3 guards and a high-level hunter, events that never happened in his original novel. He realizes he needs to grow stronger fast so he can stay ahead of the changing future. The truck speeds through the night, carrying our boy away from the nightmare he just survived. He looks up at the sky, exhausted beyond belief, and can't help but mutter a single word. As the sun starts to rise over the horizon, the colors of the dawn bleed into the clouds. He thinks the view is annoyingly beautiful, a stark contrast to the blood he's spilled. Elsewhere, the higher-ups of Eclipse are already discussing how to replace their lost slaves. They don't care about the lives lost, they only care about the mana stone production quotas. A man in a sharp suit smokes a cigarette, listening to the reports with a cold, detached expression. He finds the escapees' methods to be surprisingly clever for a low-level hunter. Back with Kangoo, he's arrived in a bustling city, still battered and looking like he's been through a war. His stamina is at 0, and he realizes his body isn't recovering because of the excessive mana usage. He finds a public phone and begins punching in a number he knows by heart. Meanwhile, back at Eclipse HQ, a commander is looking at Kangoo's file, confused how a level 10 killed a level 55 tracker. The phone rings, and a woman's voice picks up on the other end, sounding surprised. It's Han Soyeon, and she can barely believe she's hearing from the guy she thought was long gone. Kangoo leans against the glass of the phone booth, desperately asking her for a major favor. The Eclipse commander smiles as he finishes reading the report, deciding that this hunt is going to be very interesting. A few hours later, Kangoo is safely tucked away in a quiet apartment, thanking Han Soyeon for her help. She carefully wraps his wounds, asking him what the hell happened to make him look like he just crawled out of a war zone. Kangoo keeps it simple, telling her that Eclipse kidnapped him and held him as a slave. Soyeon is horrified, knowing that a low-level hunter like Kangoo is nothing more than prey for organizations like that. Despite the danger, she's just glad he's alive, but her eyes are filled with guilt and sorrow. It's clear she still loves him, and she regrets not staying in touch after their breakup years ago. She's now a level 150 veteran, with a constellation of her own, far beyond the girl he used to know. Kangoo knows that if she had stayed with him back then, she would have been dragged into the labor camp too. He tells her to stop worrying, reminding her that she's at a level where average hunters can't even touch her. He looks her in the eye, telling her that he's the only one who needs to worry about his own problems now. He wants her to focus on using her power for herself, not for a guy who's technically a dead man walking. Soyeon hands him a package containing fresh clothes, a stack of cash, and an untraceable smartphone. Kangoo notices her guild is operating in a gray area, but he doesn't judge her for it. This world is all about survival. A brief memory of their past together flashes by, showing how much has changed since the world went to hell. She asks him if he has any plans to join her guild so they can be together again, just like the old days. Kangoo turns her down, telling her she shouldn't stay trapped in the memories of a past that doesn't exist anymore. The rejection hits her hard, and a single tear escapes as she realizes he's truly changed. She forces a bittersweet smile, accepting his decision even if it hurts her to the core. She nods, realizing that the Oppa she knew isn't coming back, and this new Kangoo is someone different. She tells him she's handled his request and has a friend who can set him up with work. The details are on the phone. She tells him to take care of himself, her voice shaking with emotion as she says goodbye. Kangoo gives her a final, soft smile, thanking her and hoping she stays well in this twisted world. He hops into a cab and tells the driver to head straight for Daejeon Station. He asks to turn on the radio, needing to hear what the official version of the news is today. The broadcast announces that the Junghwa Guild has successfully wiped out the White Rose Mercenary Corps. This happened quietly on Judgment Day, a date that will go down in history for all the wrong reasons. The radio host talks about how strange the city felt that day, with a creeping darkness in the air. We see a civilian couple driving through Seoul, noticing that the streets are eerily empty for a weekend. The man is frozen in fear as the demon towers over him, ready to tear him to pieces. A massive scythe swings through the air, and the screams of the innocent are cut short. The world descended into a bloodbath that no one saw coming. Dozens of reapers appeared in the city, harvesting souls like they were wheat in a field. A news reporter on a rooftop tries to document the chaos as the sky turns a sickening shade of purple. Monsters of unknown identity began flooding the streets, killing anyone they could find. Dungeons started appearing everywhere, their presence turning modern Seoul into a living hellscape. In the middle of the carnage, a few humans realized they had been granted extraordinary powers. These people became known as hunters, the only ones capable of fighting back against the monsters. The survivors believed that divine judgment had finally fallen upon a sinful world. But the heroes who hunted monsters soon realized it was much more profitable to hunt people. They began killing and looting in the name of their new gods, the constellations. Later on, they didn't even bother with excuses, they just killed for the sake of it. We see a terrified woman running for her life, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She's cornered in a dark alley, realizing she's reaching the end of the line. A group of hunters mocks her, telling her not to worry because they'll make it quick and painless. One of them raises a blade, his eyes glowing with sadistic glee as he prepares to strike. But then, a hand catches the blade. A savior has arrived at the last second. He calmly asks the woman if she's okay, his voice steady and reassuring. The man with the curly white hair looks down with golden eyes that seem to hold infinite compassion. This was the day Jung Shiwan appeared on the scene, becoming the face of hope in Seoul. He created the Junghwa Guild, branding himself as the ultimate protector and healer of the people. Kangoo listens to the radio, knowing that everyone in Korea is currently obsessed with moving to safe Seoul. The news claims the White Rose Corps were terrorists plotting a massive attack on a subway station. The taxi driver praises Shiwan for wiping out a whole terrorist organization, completely buying the lie. But Kangoo knows the truth. The White Rose Corps were never terrorists. They were just in Shiwan's way. The driver mentions his son just awakened and dreams of joining Junghwa, proving how effective the propaganda is. Kangoo realizes that if he tries to expose Shiwan now, the world would just label him as the villain instead. He remembers the vision of the crowd chanting "kill him," knowing exactly how that story ends. That's why he's choosing to work with mercenaries. They're the only ones who can operate out of Shiwan's immediate reach. The cab pulls up to a high-rise building, and the driver announces they've arrived. Kangoo decides that being a freelance worker for the mercenary corps is the best path for his growth. He enters the lobby and is met by a woman who says she's been expecting him. This is Lee Yerin, and she looks every bit as dangerous as the rumors suggested. Kangoo keeps his real identity a secret, introducing himself as Young Sung-kyu to stay off the radar. Yerin gives him a sharp look, sensing that there's more to this level 10 than meets the eye. She offers him a simple collection job to start with, testing the waters. Kangoo immediately passes on the easy stuff, asking for the hardest missions with the best rewards. She's stunned, reminding him that he's only a level 10 assassin according to his profile. She bursts out laughing, finding his sheer confidence absolutely hilarious. She tells him that too much courage is often just reckless bravado that leads to a shallow grave. Her eyes turn cold and predatory as she asks if he really wants a job cleaning up dead bodies. Kangoo just smirks, asking her if being a mercenary isn't all about skills regardless of one's level. The system reveals her patron, Observer of Chaos, a constellation that can distort and block sight. He can see the red mark glowing over her head, signaling her high-level contract. Lee Yerin is a top-tier mage and buffer, a heavy hitter in the mercenary world. In the novel, she was one of the few who was supposed to eventually face off against Shiwan's stars. Kangoo remains unmoved, his blue eyes locking onto hers without a hint of fear. He repeats that levels don't matter, but Yerin counters by asking why he's just a lowly mercenary then. She walks past him, muttering that prejudice and truth are often two very different things. They stand back to back for a moment, the tension between them thick enough to cut. She lets out a soft deciding that words are cheap and she needs to see what he's really worth. She turns around with a wide, challenging grin, telling him to show her his skills right now. They head to a private training area on the rooftop, the wind howling around them. Yirin tells him she's only going to judge one single thing about him today. She gathers a swirling ball of green energy in her palm, the mana crackling with intensity. The test is simple, he just has to avoid her skill, or he's out. Kangoo realizes she wants to see if he even has the basic reflexes to protect his own body. She explains that being able to dodge is the first step to creating any real opportunity to attack. She launches the attack, the green energy screaming through the air toward Kangoo's head. This is Fog Tracker, a skill that creates tracking puppets using nothing but mist. A ghostly elf-like figure emerges from the mana, moving with a mind of its own. Kangoo knows it's not a lethal attack, so he won't die even if he gets hit. But if he fails to dodge, the test ends instantly, and he loses his shot at the mercenary life. He shouts, "Let's begin!" and throws himself into the fight. Yirin laughs as she directs the fog spirit, clearly enjoying the chance to play with a newbie. The spirit dives and weaves, leaving trails of glowing green mist in its wake. It lunges at Kangoo from above, moving faster than any normal level 10 should be able to track. But Kangoo just smirks, his eyes seeing the path of the spirit before it even moves. He uses a precise dodge, the spirit passing through the space where he stood just a millisecond ago. Yirin is stunned as the spirit hits the ground and dissipates into a cloud of useless mist. She can't believe her eyes. How did he avoid a tracking skill so easily? Kangoo is already on the move, a blur of motion as he sprints across the rooftop. Yirin realizes that at his level, even jumping a meter should be a struggle, yet he's flying. She's shocked by his proficiency. He's using basic assassin skills with the mastery of a veteran. She recognizes the move. It's a short-distance leap, performed with zero wasted energy. She smiles, realizing that this Jung Sung-kyu wasn't just talking hot air. She ramps up the intensity, summoning more fog spirits to swarm him from all sides. She asks him if he'll be able to dodge this time too, her eyes glowing with competitive fire. The spirits converge on him like a tidal wave of green mana. Kangoo is forced into a series of rapid-fire evasions, his feet barely touching the ground. The spirits are relentless, their movements becoming more erratic and hard to predict. The spirits missing him by an inch as they collide beneath him. He's not just dodging, he's studying her, finding the patterns in her mana output. A spirit closes in from his blind spot, but Kangoo activates traverse teleportation instantly. A massive burst of blue light fills the rooftop as he vanishes from sight. Yirin screams as her spirits hit nothing but empty air, her confusion turning into genuine alarm. She mutters, "Traverse teleportation?" It's a high-tier skill that shouldn't even be available to him. Before she can react, Kangoo reappears right behind her, his blade held low. She spins around, but the cold edge of his sword is already inches from her throat. He calmly suggests that they should probably end the test right here. Yirin freezes, a single bead of sweat rolling down her face as she realizes she's been outplayed. Kangoo admits to himself that she was faster than expected. She definitely earned her title as commander. She smirks, pushing his blade away with a finger, clearly impressed by the newbie. She asks him if he's been trained before, because those movements were definitely not level 10. Kangoo just says, nope, keeping his secrets close to his chest. He casually asks if he passed, acting like he didn't just perform a miracle on the rooftop. Yirin agrees, deciding she'll commission him as if he were a level 50 hunter. They leave the building in her van, driving through the ruined outskirts of the city. She watches him in the rearview mirror, still trying to figure out what kind of monster she just hired. She mentions she's interested in bulletproof glass because a pesky gunman has been on her tail lately. Kangoo asks who it is, and she laughs, saying Eclipse has been sending her lots of love recently. It's a turf war, and the stakes are rising between the mercenaries and the criminal guild. She hands him a file, her expression turning serious as she details the mission. The job is to track down and eliminate a wanted criminal, a commission she thinks is perfect for him. A small, glowing fairy spirit hops onto the paperwork, looking curiously at the MC. The target is Kim Mukyun, a level 50 mage hidden in an abandoned dungeon in Gyeonggi-do. The objective is to retrieve a third-rank item called Varteros's shoes from the criminal. Kangoo asks if he needs to bring the guy back alive, his voice devoid of any hesitation. Yirin tells him he can execute the guy on the spot. The National Security Agency would actually prefer it. Kangoo smirks, realizing this is the perfect opportunity to grow his power. He tells her he'll begin immediately, looking ready to claim his next loot. Later that night, Kangoo arrives at the abandoned ruins, a dark and desolate dungeon. Yirin warns him that the criminal is probably hiding in a deep corner, so it won't be easy. But Kangoo knows this place like the back of his hand. It was his own creation in the novel. He draws his blade as he's immediately greeted by a pack of demonic, red-eyed rabbits. He senses their presence before they even move, his mana tracking working perfectly. He cuts his own hand, letting the blood drip onto the blade to activate his specialized skills. The blood hits the floor, the metallic scent driving the monsters into a frenzy. The rabbits lunge with terrifying speed, their claws bared and glowing with a faint light. The pack attacks all at once, a chaotic swarm of fur and teeth. Kangoo stands his ground, surrounded by a dozen monsters in the dim light of the dungeon. He uses traverse teleportation to weave through the swarm, dodging their claws with ease. With a series of short-distance leaps, he begins harvesting the monsters one by one. He's a ghost in the dark, his blade leaving glowing trails of blue light as he strikes. The monsters are cut down before they even know where the attack is coming from. He moves with surgical precision, his face a mask of cold determination. He cleaves through another rabbit, the impact sending it flying across the room. Bodies are scattered everywhere as he cleans up the dungeon floor in record time. Yurin's voice echoes in his head, reminding him to get the shoes and then do whatever he wants with the rest. She asks what he wants as a reward, but Kangoo already knows what he's really after. He needs that official dungeon raid license, so he can loot high-level bosses without any interference. Kangoo stares into the shadows, a deadly smirk on his face as he welcomes his next victim, a middle boss named Ventus. The system confirms the kill list is growing. Ventus is officially ready to be looted, but he's still talking trash, promising to kill our guy. Kangoo tells him to stop yapping and actually show some skill, completely unfazed by the threat. Ventus doesn't hesitate, slamming the ground and unleashing a wave of mana that cracks the floor beneath them. The hooded boss lunges forward with glowing red eyes, his blades humming with a dark, lethal energy. He moves like a blur, appearing in multiple places at once to try and overwhelm Kangoo's senses. Ventus thinks he's clever, surrounding our boy with illusions, but Kangoo's blue eyes are tracking the real deal with ease. The boss swings wide, aiming to take Kangoo's head off in one clean move. He closes in, the red glow of his eyes intensifying, as he thinks he's finally got the MC cornered. But the blade only meets the cold air, as Kangoo prepares a counterattack that Ventus never saw coming. Kangoo activates traverse teleportation. He knows the boss's attack patterns by heart, realizing that while the main strike looks powerful, the real threat is coming from the side. Boom! He uses short-distance leap to close the gap, driving his blade into the boss's side before he can even blink. Ventus gasps as blood sprays across his cloak, the shock of being hit by a level 10 hitting him harder than the actual blade. The boss tries to spin around for a final desperate strike, but Kangoo is already moving like a ghost. Another teleportation puts Kangoo right behind him, mocking the boss for being a high ranker in name only. Our boy realizes this guy's head-to-head combat is total garbage. He's nothing without his illusions. Kangoo delivers a brutal kick to the back of the boss's knee, forcing him to the ground with a loud crack. Blood pools on the stone as Ventus collapses, his strength failing him as the MC towers over him. Kangoo grabs a new weapon, a high-tier dagger that begins to glow as it registers with his system. The notification pops up. He's now equipped with a powerful new tool to continue his massacre. Ventus looks up in pure terror, realizing he's no longer the predator in this dark dungeon. Kangoo doesn't show a shred of mercy, plunging the dagger deep into the boss's chest with a sickening crunch, ends the middle boss's life once and for all. The body of Ventus begins to pixelate and dissolve into pure mana as the looting process begins. System alert: Kangoo has successfully stolen the illusion skill, adding another broken ability to his arsenal. He lets out a dark chuckle, feeling the power surge through him as he wipes the blood from his cheek. He looks around at the empty corridor, a single glowing item left behind by the fallen boss. But suddenly, he senses eyes on him. He's not as alone in this dungeon as he thought. He stalks toward the shadows, his mana tracking alerting him to a group of hunters watching from the balcony above. He picks up a strange, glowing green plant, Solasium, and realizes he just hit the jackpot. Up on the balcony, a trio of hunters is losing their minds. They can't believe he just found 2 pieces of Solasium in one go. Meet Joe Youngjae, the rank 3 guardian of Osan, who is stunned that a random kid just hit the boss's weak point with such precision. A girl in his crew, looking totally hyped, calls him boss, and points out that they've seen this kid before. She remembers seeing Kangoo at the market earlier, buying strange monster anesthetics and kobold blood. They realize he wasn't just a random shopper, he was prepping for a full-scale dungeon raid. Youngjae admits the kid is a skilled assassin, but he's confused why a hunter this good is in such a low-level dungeon. The girl smirks, suggesting they should just drag him over and take his stuff, but Youngjae has a more sinister plan. He tells her there's no need to rush. If they wait, it'll be much easier to loot him after he's tired out from fighting. Young-jae flashes a truly evil grin, looking like a vulture waiting for its prey to die. He decides to let Kangoo do all the heavy lifting, planning to swoop in and kill him once the dungeon is clear. Meanwhile, Kangoo hits level 16, and the system tells him his next major skill unlock is just 4 levels away. He decides to dump every single stat point into stamina, knowing his physical body is his biggest bottleneck right now. He takes a bite of the Solaceum plant, the bitter taste immediately starting to soothe his aching nerves. This stuff is a miracle drug. It relieves pain and acts as a perfect suppressant for his mana hypersensitivity. He knows Solaceum is incredibly rare and hard to mass-produce in this world. In fact, there's only one person in the whole country who knows how to grow it, and they're located at Ground Zero. That place is the old DMZ, a dangerous wasteland where only the strongest survive, and he knows he'll have to go there soon. He remembers the fight with Ventus, realizing how close it actually was despite his knowledge. If his hypersensitivity had flared up at the wrong moment, he would have been a dead man. He would have died in no time, just another failed author lost in his own story. He walks deeper into the ruins, knowing that to get what he needs, he's going to need a hell of a lot more money. Back in the city, Lee Yeren is driving through the sunset, her mind on the business of blood and power. She talks about how the world is getting worse, especially with the interference from major guilds like Eclipse and Black Lion. She glances in the mirror, her eyes sharp and suspicious as she navigates the dangerous streets. She claims she's used to walking around with eyes in the back of her head, always ready for a betrayal. Suddenly, she gets a call, and her expression shifts from bored to intensely focused. The voice on the other end asks if there's a hunter she can recommend for a special project. She admits she's excessively understaffed lately, the chaos of the city making it hard to find good talent. She grips the steering wheel, a mysterious smile playing on her lips as she thinks about our boy. She drives toward a high-rise building, the headlights of her van cutting through the gathering gloom. She laughs softly, wondering if she should really throw Kangoo into the lion's den just yet. The scene shifts to a luxurious office. It's Zhang Shiwan, the hero himself, answering the phone with a voice that sounds like pure silk. He wonders if Yeren has finally found a hunter that will be to his liking. He tells her he'll likely reject anyone mediocre, so he wants her to change her standards for this search. Yeren listens with a bored expression, reminding him that she prefers to nurture lower-level talents properly first. Shiwan laughs, finding her dedication to weaklings amusing as he flips through a file. He admits he doesn't want to jump to conclusions, but he needs results, and he needs them now. He trusts Yeren's recommendations, but he's looking at the file of a hunter who's already gone. Yeren looks sad for a split second, mentioning how unfortunate it was that they lost so many good people to accidents. She brushes it off, telling Shiwan she'll keep watching her new prospect and will let him know when he's verified. Shiwan pivots, asking if she has any useful intel on the local crime syndicates. He's seen shaking hands with powerful men, acting like a diplomat while secretly plotting their downfall. Yeren promises to send the info through a secure channel, maintaining the professional mask they both wear. Shiwan puts on his best hero face, telling her he can help her with anything she needs whenever she needs it. But as he looks out over the city, he mutters that his Zhenghua guild truly needs a lot of new talent. Behind him, a captured hunter is gagged with magical energy, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror. Shiwan's face turns demonic for a second as he tells Yeren he'll treat any good recruit the best he possibly can. The call ends with a click, and Yeren lets out a long, exhausted sigh in the quiet of her van. She smirks, wondering how the hell Shiwan is already interested in a kid who literally just got his first commission. Back in the dungeon, Kangoo is a blur of violence, his blade slicing through a shadow monster with explosive force. Meet the next hurdle, middle boss Ibria, a terrifying creature of shadows and dark magic. Kangoo lands in a crouch, his eyes locked on the boss as it lets out a bone-chilling shriek. Ibria lunges, her shadowy form stretching across the room like a living nightmare. The boss unleashes a massive, clawed hand made of pure dark energy, aiming to crush our boy into paste. This is abduction, a skill that uses telekinetic force to pull and crush targets from a distance. Kangoo stays calm, his mana tracking showing him exactly where the pressure is going to hit. He lets the claw get dangerously close, his expression focused as he times his next move to the millisecond. Whoosh! He teleports at the last possible second, the boss's claw shattering a massive pillar of stone instead of him. He realizes the weakness of the abduction skill is the massive wind-up time it needs before each strike. He decides to make use of that gap, his eyes glowing blue as he prepares a lethal counterstrike. She swings again, a massive orb of shadow energy tearing through the air, but Kangoo is already gone. His feet kick up dust as he sprints across the debris, closing the distance before the boss can reset. He lunges forward, his hand outstretched. Boom! A massive explosion of mana rocks the room, sending chunks of stone flying in every direction. A pale hand reaches out from the dust, clawing at the air as the boss's defenses crumble. Kangoo uses his new illusion magic. The boss is totally disoriented, her red eyes darting around in a panic as the shadows fail her. Traverse teleportation! Kangoo appears directly over her shoulder, looking like a reaper about to collect a soul. He plunges his blade through the boss's neck, the bright blue mana of his weapon cutting through her dark form like butter. Ibria lets out one last, gargled scream as black blood erupts from her wound. She falls to the ground, her shadowy cloak fluttering one last time before she goes completely still. The system rings, "You have defeated a middle boss." Kangoo levels up again and dumps everything into stamina. He watches as the boss's body dissolves, the system starting the looting process on her unique skill. Kangoo has successfully stolen Abduction, a skill that lets him summon a target within a fixed radius. He tests the ability, wondering if it works on inanimate objects as well as people. He focuses his mana, his hand glowing with a familiar blue aura as he targets a discarded dagger on the floor. The system locks on to the weapon, a target reticle appearing in his vision. Snatch! The dagger flies into his hand as if pulled by an invisible string. This skill is a total game changer. He realizes he can use it on items too, giving him a massive advantage in any fight. But even better, he thinks he can use this skill to motion cancel his own attacks, making him twice as fast. He starts practicing immediately, his movements becoming a blur of teleportation and snatching. He's flickering all over the room, the sound of his feet hitting the stone echoing like rapid gunfire. His speed is reaching a level that would make even a veteran assassin sweat. Up in the observation room, Young Jae and his crew are watching with wide eyes, their jaws on the floor. They can't believe a newbie just killed Ibria without a single tanker or support unit. They watch him train, confused as to why he's still pushing himself after such a heavy fight. The girl asks what the hell he's doing, and the tech guy guesses he's trying to raise his skill proficiency on the fly. One of the lackeys asks if they should go down and screw him over now while he's distracted. Young Jae doesn't answer immediately, a bead of sweat rolling down his forehead as he realizes how dangerous this kid actually is. He snaps at his crew, telling them to shut up and wait until the target is actually exhausted. He's clearly starting to get scared. Meanwhile, deep in the ruins, the main target, Kim Mukhyun, is tearing into a piece of raw meat like a wild animal. He stops to read a letter, his messy hair falling over his face as he scowls at the contents. The letter says Black Lion has given him conditional approval to join them if he can provide intel on Lee Yaren's mercenaries. Mukhyun laughs, sitting on a pile of fresh corpses, finding the good news to be absolutely hilarious. He knows Yaren is desperate to catch him, and he's clearly enjoying the game of cat and mouse. He dreams of joining Eclipse or Black Lion, wanting to step back into the big leagues of the underworld. But suddenly, he stops laughing, his eyes widening as he senses a powerful mana signature entering his territory. Kangoo walks into the massive construction site area of the dungeon, looking up at the scaffolding with a bored expression. He knows the mage is up there somewhere, watching him through the shadows. Mukhyun smirks, licking his lips as he realizes another guy he can rob has just walked right into his trap. He knocks on a steel beam, a signal that echoes through the hollow structure. "Come out, guys," he whispers, and a massive shadow wolf erupts from the darkness behind him. The monster growls, its eyes glowing with purple fire as Mukhyun declares that it's officially time to eat. The wolves lunge from the scaffolding, dropping down like black rain toward the MC. They move with an unnatural speed, their paws hitting the ground with zero sound. One wolf snaps its jaws right in Kangoo's face, its breath smelling like death and old blood. But Kangoo just stands there calmly, holding a strange piece of meat he bought at the market earlier. Mukhyun is confused, wondering why the hell his wolves are suddenly stopping and sniffing the air. The wolves start fighting each other over the meat, totally ignoring their master's commands in their frenzy. Kangoo draws his blade, the light reflecting in his eyes as he prepares to exploit the opening. He strikes! He plunges his dagger into the lead wolf's head, the monster letting out a pathetic "aw" as it dies. He finishes it off with another stab, the shadowy beast dissolving into nothingness before it can even bite back. Mukhyun screams, "What the hell?" from above, his mind racing as he tries to figure out how his wolves were tamed so easily. Kangoo explains to nobody in particular that he prepared that meat specifically for their taste buds. He knows their lore. The remaining wolves dissolve into data, leaving only a few scraps of the special brisket on the floor. Kangoo looks up at the scaffolding, delivering a cold warning to the hidden mage. He tells Mukhyun to give up the stolen items if he treasures his life, or things are going to get very messy. Mukyun loses it, cursing Li Yeren and telling our boy to take it if you can, as he prepares a massive spell. The mage thinks Kongu is well prepared, but lacks brain cells for charging a fortified position like this. Mukyun mocks him for heading straight into the enemy camp like a total idiot. He activates a hidden trap, a massive manamine that begins to glow with a violent purple light. Kongu's mana tracking kicks in, the entire room lighting up in his vision like a tactical map. He sees the traps and immediately uses short-distance leap to navigate the minefield at high speed. Our boy is a blur of motion, leaping from beam to beam, the explosions going off harmlessly behind him. Mukyun gasps as Kongu reaches the upper level, the distance between them closing in seconds. The mage screams in fury, his hands wreathed in dark fire as he refuses to get scared of a lower-level hunter. Kongu's eyes narrow as he notices the mage is finally starting his high-level casting. The system reveals Mukyun's patron, Fighter of Chaos, an evil constellation that specializes in disorientation. Mukyun shouts that he's going to show Kongu the black magic of hell, unleashing a massive surge of purple mana. The MC teleports again, the Traverse teleportation leaving a trail of blue light that cuts through the dark smoke. He calculates the mage's level at around 50, realizing this is going to be his toughest fight yet. He knows exactly what the mage will do next, because he's the one who designed this character's kit. Mukyun activates Seize Vision, a skill that plunges everything around Kongu into total, absolute darkness. Our boy can't see a thing, but he tells himself not yet, waiting for the perfect moment to react. He stands perfectly still in the void, sensing the shift in the air as the mage prepares to deliver a finishing blow. Now! He uses his blade to catch a reflection, his illusion magic turning the darkness back on its creator. Mukyun is stunned, his eyes wide as he realizes his own vision-stealing trick has been countered. He screams, wondering how a random kid knew the only method to defend against that specific dark magic. Kongu just smirks, telling him of course I know it, as he lunges forward through the shadows. I made this ability, he whispers, looking every bit the creator-turned-killer. Mukyun is panicked now, a system target box appearing on his chest as Kongu locks on. Abduction! The blue energy grabs Mukyun, dragging him forward with a force that nearly breaks his bones. The mage is terrified, realizing the skill didn't have a wind-up action, it's a total cheat move. Crunch! Kongu plunges his blade into the same spot he wounded Mukyun earlier, the sound of tearing flesh echoing in the room. Mukyun lets out a blood-curdling caw as the blade sinks deep into his torso. The mage desperately tries to cast Mana Burn, his hand glowing with a violent purple flame. A massive explosion of fire erupts, tearing the scaffolding apart and lighting up the dungeon. Kongu is blown back by the blast, hitting a steel beam with a heavy thud. Mukyun screams that he's going to burn our boy to death, his fire casting becoming irregular and wild. Kongu notices the mage is using an item in his mouth to artificially boost his awakened state. It's a dangerous gamble. He dodges another fireball, realizing that the mage is slowly losing control of his own power, his face looking completely unhinged as his eyes glow with a manic red light, and unleashes his most powerful spell yet, a beam of pure chaos energy. The construction site is absolutely demolished as the beam tears through everything in its path. Mukyun laughs like a maniac as he sees Kongu falling through the air, seemingly defeated. But then he notices something strange about the falling body. Kongu's feet touch a surface that shouldn't be there. He's standing on an invisible platform. Mukyun is horrified to see two versions of Kongu suddenly appearing in front of him, as he realizes he's been caught in another illusion, his mana flaring out of control. He unleashes Heat Fall, a massive wave of fire that cooks the entire area, but he's just hitting ghosts. The real Kongu is already behind him, moving with the cold grace of a predator who's already won. Mukyun can only ask, "What kind of bullshit is this?" as the MC closes his hands around the mage's throat. The mage's red eyes are filled with pure panic as he realizes he's reached the end of the line. Kongu stabs him again. He drives the blade into the exact same wound from before, making sure the job is done right this time. Mukyun lets out one final lung-bursting scream that echoes through the entire dungeon. The mage collapses onto the blood-stained floor, his body twitching as the life drains out of him. He gasps out, "How dare you fool me?" his arrogance still there even in his final moments. Kongu just looks down with a cold grin, admitting that he knew the mage would fall for the oldest trick in the book. He stares at the fallen criminal, knowing his strategy was perfect from start to finish. He's covered in blood, but he doesn't look tired. He looks like he's just getting started. Suddenly, a notification pops up. A high-ranking constellation called the Master of Mobile Warfare is actually praising his combat style. Kongu is stunned, because getting a direct sponsorship from a constellation this early is incredibly rare. Usually, constellations just watch like it's a TV show, but giving out constellation power like this is a massive deal. But as the buff settles in, Kangoo notices another message appearing. His own constellation, the Dimension Looter, is throwing a total tantrum, calling the other sponsor pathetic. Kangoo just smirks at the screen, asking if the god is jealous, and promises that choosing him was the best move they ever made. He's got that cold, villainous look in his eyes again as he prepares for the next phase. He tells himself he's going to strip every single useful ability from this world. The Dimension Looter calls him a lunatic and tells him to focus on the prey that's still crawling on the floor. Kangoo doesn't hesitate, delivering a brutal finishing blow to the target as a scream echoes through the room. The mage curses him, calling him a cruel monster for showing no mercy. The dying man laughs, asking if Kangoo really thinks killing one guy is going to change the balance of this messed up world. Kangoo looks him dead in the eye and prepares to swing his blade one last time. He tells the guy that if the world could be fixed that easily, he wouldn't even be standing here. A bright flash of energy cuts through the air as the mage's life finally ends. A system window confirms the kill and announces that Kangoo has seized the mage's contract with the Fighter of Chaos. Now, that constellation is under the control of Kangoo's Dimension Looter, and all its abilities belong to him. He checks his new skills, picking up Seize Vision and Shallow Chaos. He's satisfied with the haul, knowing these skills are going to make him an absolute nightmare in a fight. He looks down at the corpse with a chilling smile, wondering what else he can take. He decides he might as well strip the guy of all his high-level gear too. He starts rummaging through the mage's clothes, showing zero respect for the dead. He tosses the useless items aside, looking for the real treasures hidden in the mage's pockets. A bunch of glowing blue items pop out, and Kangoo is surprised by how much this guy was actually carrying. He realized the mage must have dumped every cent he had into gear instead of saving it. He finds a set of mana-infused gloves and realizes he can use the strings to turn his daggers into deadly projectile weapons. Then he finds a chest piece that he can modify to boost his low stamina. He spots a ring that boosts endurance, which is a stat he desperately needs if he's going to survive long battles. But the real prize is an evil god's talisman that decreases skill casting time, the perfect buff for a fast-paced assassin. He checks his inventory, seeing rank 9 shoes and gloves that are going to sell for a fortune. He's already got the clothes he needs, so he's ready to move on. The look on his face says it all. He's feeling completely unstoppable right now. He checks his level and sees he's already hit level 19. He figures if he can hit level 20 on his way out of the dungeon, the whole trip will be a perfect success. He heads toward the exit, ready to claim the rest of his reward. He walks through the abandoned, red-tinted streets of the dungeon, but something feels off. It's too quiet. There are no monsters anywhere in sight. He knows this area should be crawling with thorn-toed rabbits, so the silence is a huge red flag. He stops and looks up at the surrounding buildings, sensing eyes on him. He stays calm, acting like he's just a tired hunter caught off guard. Up on a balcony, a group of scavengers is watching him, laughing about how easy it's going to be to kill him and take his loot. The scavengers signal to their man on the ground to get ready for the ambush. Their leader, Jo Youngjae, gives a wicked grin, thinking he's about to hit the jackpot. One of the lackeys opens a bag, ready to unleash a distraction. He tosses out a bunch of bait, and a swarm of bloodthirsty monsters starts charging toward Kangoo. Kangoo just stands there as a small cut appears on his neck, but he doesn't flinch. Kangoo finally draws his blade, telling them he's been waiting for them to show their faces. In one blurred motion, a blue streak of light cuts through the air, slicing every monster in half instantly. Blood sprays everywhere as the entire pack is wiped out in a single second. A notification pops up. He just hit level 20, exactly like he planned. He just unlocked the basic assassin skill Accelerated Stabbing, and he's been waiting for this exact moment. But because his constellation is the Dimension Looter, the skill doesn't stay basic. It immediately upgrades to a much deadlier version called Bloody Stabbing. This new skill lets him stack a bleeding effect on his targets that gets worse with every hit. Up on the balcony, the scavengers are losing their minds because their distraction just got turned into mincemeat. Jo Youngjae isn't worried though. He thinks this is the perfect chance to jump Kangoo while his guard is down. He leaps from the building, his heavy boots smashing into the pavement as he charges. He swings a massive, heavy sword down at Kangoo, with enough force to split the ground. Kangoo uses short-distance leap, vanishing from the impact zone just in time. Kangoo realizes that if he'd been even a second slower, his head would have been rolling on the floor. Youngjae is furious that he missed, his body glowing with a red berserker-like aura. He enters a charge state, moving with insane speed for a guy his size. He screams that he won't miss this time, swinging his giant blade in a wide, destructive arc. Kangoo ducks under the blade, activating Bloody Stabbing and turning into a blur of blades. He realizes the guy has a high recovery rate, so he needs to stack the bleeding effect at least 10 times to kill him. Youngjae laughs off the cuts, telling Kanggu his attacks are too weak to stop a berserker. His lackeys cheer from the sidelines, shouting that the boss gets stronger the more he fights. Youngjae's aura flares up, his strength visibly increasing as the fight goes on. Kanggu admits the guy is strong, but he's also way too slow and clumsy. He rushes in again, his dagger glowing with lethal energy. He lands a flurry of stabs, each one sinking deep into Youngjae's sides. Youngjae just keeps laughing like a maniac, telling Kanggu to try harder. Kanggu smirks back, telling him he only needs 4 more hits to finish this. Youngjae suddenly realizes something is wrong as his body starts to feel heavy. Dark energy begins to swirl around Kanggu as he prepares his final move. He activates Seize Vision, and the world turns into a swirl of shadows for his opponent. He's panicked now, realizing he can't see where the next strike is coming from. Kanggu unleashes one last bloody stabbing combo, his blade moving faster than the eye can follow. Youngjae tries to swing his big sword one last time, screaming in frustration, but Kanggu easily dodges the slow strike, landing several more deep cuts as he passes. Kanggu stands behind him, casually putting his blade away. Youngjae turns around with a bloody grin, asking if that's all the tricks Kanggu has left. Youngjae stumbles, his strength completely vanishing as his HP hits critical levels. He falls to his knees, gasping for air as the world starts to fade. His subordinates are horrified, unable to believe their boss is actually losing to a low-level hunter. He tries to force his body to move, screaming that it's impossible for him to lose. Suddenly, Kanggu uses abduction. Kanggu leans in close and tells him that even a berserker dies if they lose enough blood. The scavengers on the balcony realize the fight is over and start running for their lives. Kanggu doesn't even bother chasing them, calling them a complete mess. He looks down at Youngjae's dying body, noting that the local security agency must be falling apart if guys like this are running around. He claims his prize, seizing Youngjae's contract with the Glutton of Blood. He smiles as the system windows fill his vision. He just gained a massive new power source. He's thrilled because he managed to loot 2 powerful constellations in a single day. He looks up at the sky and asks the gods if they're ready to sponsor him now. He looks like a true villain, completely satisfied with the chaos he's caused. Kanggu reviews his new stats, knowing that the Glutton of Blood contract is a game-changer. This constellation makes him immune to mental attacks as his stamina drops, which is perfect for his high-risk fighting style. He walks over to Youngjae's gear, picking up the high-level belt and goggles. He finds a pair of magic-resistance anklets and shoes that significantly boost his movement speed. He also grabs a pair of stamina-increasing gloves, solving one of his biggest weaknesses. He gears up, feeling more powerful than ever, and decides it's time to finally finish his official commission. He heads back to the city of Daejeon, the bright lights of the skyscrapers reflecting in the dark night. He meets with Lee Yeren, who is genuinely impressed that he managed to find Varteros' shoes so quickly. They sit down in her sleek, high-tech office to discuss the mission results. Kanggu keeps it professional, thanking her for the opportunity but staying cold and focused. Yeren admits that most rookies die on their first mission, so he's already exceeded her expectations. She's a calculating woman who only cares about results, and Kanggu has proven he can deliver. As promised, she hands him a raid pass for a dungeon called Wuthering Heights, which is famous for its multiple boss monsters. Kanggu looks over the info, noticing there are 4 middle bosses and 1 main boss waiting for him. He's internally ecstatic, because that means there are 5 unique skills he can loot for himself. He tells her to book the raid for tomorrow morning, not wanting to waste a single second. He then pulls out all the loot he took from the mage and the scavengers, asking if she's interested in buying. Yeren is shocked by the sheer amount of high-level gear he's brought back and promises him a fair price. She then slides a file across the table, ready to give him his next high-value target. Kanggu points to a specific man, a criminal named Heo Jung-tae, who is wanted by the National Security Agency. The file says Heo is wanted for burglary and bodily harm, and the reward is a massive 300 million won. Yeren warns him that the guy is an expert at hiding and has only been seen near Yangpyeong Station once. Kanggu just gives her a confident look, telling her he has his own ways of finding people. After selling his extra loot for 250 million won, Kanggu walks through the neon-lit streets of the city. He decides it's time to use his money to increase his lifeline, meaning he needs to stock up on Silasium. He makes a call to an underground dealer, his voice low and untraceable. He orders 10 units of Silasium and sets the meeting point at Yongsan Station. The dealer on the other end is a bearded old man who simply agrees and hangs up. Kanggu realizes he still has a few hours before his next dungeon raid. He decides to head to a place called Club Hades to grab a drink and see if he can pick up any rumors. Inside the club, there's a brutal cage match happening, with hunters beating each other for sport. The crowd is cheering as one guy gets stabbed, showing just how lawless the hunter world really is. People are shouting and betting everything they have on the violence. Kongu sits at the bar and orders a Solacium burst, slamming his cash onto the counter. The bartender, Benny, is surprised because almost nobody orders a drink that expensive. She tells him it has a very unique flavor, but Kongu just says it's exactly his taste. Benny tells him to wait a moment, knowing that bartenders in places like this are the best source of secrets. Kongu stays alert, knowing that even unverified info can be worth its weight in gold. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he spots someone familiar in the corner of the club. He's shocked, sweating slightly as he tries to stay hidden. It's a woman sitting under a neon sign, looking bored but incredibly dangerous. He recognizes her instantly. It's Cha So-hee, the elite hunting dog of Eclipse. He panics for a second, wondering if Eclipse has already tracked him down after his escape. Benny comes back with his drink, telling him it might be the last time she sees him for a while. Kongu asks her why, trying to keep his voice steady. Benny whispers that rumors say Eclipse is planning to take over this entire club tonight. Kongu realizes their plan is to kidnap all the hunters here and drag them off to the monomines as slave labor. He knows this is Eclipse's standard move, and he's disgusted by it. He realizes that Cha So-hee isn't here for him, she's here to oversee the kidnapping. He decides he needs to get out of there as fast as possible. But before he can move, a massive explosion rocks the front entrance of the club. A group of masked Eclipse goons charges in, and Kongu realizes he's in deep trouble. The crowd panics as they realize the most feared criminal organization in the country has just arrived. People are screaming, trying to find an exit as the goons block all the doors. The Eclipse leader tells everyone to stay calm and do exactly what they're told if they want to live. They start grabbing hunters, calling them precious goods for the mines. One guy tries to fight back, but he gets tackled and beaten down instantly. The goons are using brutal efficiency to round everyone up. One of the Eclipse soldiers notices Kongu standing at the bar and asks what he's staring at. The goon raises a hatchet, asking Kongu if he's looking to die early. Kongu doesn't say a word, using traverse teleportation to vanish right before the axe hits him. The goon is stunned, looking around wildly for where Kongu went. Blood sprays across the wall as Kongu reappears behind him and delivers a lethal strike. Kongu stands over the body, his dagger ready, while the other goons start to surround him. The whole club has turned into a war zone, with bodies falling everywhere. Cha So-hee watches the chaos from her seat, a sadistic smile forming on her face as she notices Kongu's skills. Kongu stays on high alert, knowing that one wrong move with this woman means his head is coming off. She pulls out her own dagger, her movements fluid and deadly. Instead of attacking Kongu, she suddenly turns and slices through a group of Eclipse goons who are getting in her way. Kongu is confused, wondering why she's killing her own people. She carves through the soldiers with zero hesitation, blood spraying everywhere. The Eclipse goons are terrified, asking her why she's attacking them. She doesn't answer, just keeps slaughtering them with a twisted look of joy. She's a complete whirlwind of destruction, clearing the area around the bar in seconds. She turns back to Kongu, and he realizes she's just showing off to see how he'll react. She tells him she's never seen him before, but he's definitely caught her eye, then asks what guild he belongs to. Kongu tells her he doesn't like being tied down, which makes her smile even wider. She says that's even better and suggests they talk business after they leave this dump. The rest of the Eclipse soldiers are losing their minds, wondering why their leader has turned on them. Cha So-hee looks at them with pure contempt, her purple eyes glowing in the dark. She simply says, "Attack us," and the remaining goons charge in out of desperation. Kongu realizes this is all part of her twisted plan to test him. She tells him she'll help, but it's obvious she just wants to see what he's capable of. Kongu decides to play along, smirking as he prepares his next move. He charges forward, his movements matching her speed and lethality. A goon tries to block him, but he's way out of his league. The soldiers shout that Kongu is empty-handed, but they have no idea what's coming. Kongu reaches out his hand. He uses his telekinesis to pull a discarded blade through the air, impaling an enemy from behind. He's a total beast, clearing through the ranks while Cha So-hee watches with glee. She's shocked that he can use telekinesis, wondering what other secrets he's hiding. Kongu tells her they should head for the emergency exit before more backup arrives. They bolt through the club, the remaining soldiers shouting for them to stop. Cha So-hee follows close behind, clearly wanting to recruit him for her own secret agenda. They burst through the back door and head for the stairs. She asks if he's actually a mage since he's using telekinetic powers. Kongu just laughs it off, using his mana strings to reel in another weapon. He kicks a door open, knocking several more goons down the stairs. Meanwhile, an announcement plays over the club's speakers, trying to keep the customers calm. The announcement blames a rival group called Black Lion for the disturbance, which is a total lie. They're trying to cover up the fact that Eclipse is performing a mass kidnapping. One of the Eclipse captains laughs, telling the captured hunters they're all going to the detention center. A captured hunter screams at them to stop the lies, but it's no use. The announcement claims Eclipse is working hard to protect everyone, which is the peak of hypocrisy. Back in the stairwell, another group of goons tries to corner Kangoo. One of them swings a glowing red blade, but Kangoo is already 5 steps ahead. He lands a brutal punch and a stab simultaneously, dropping the guy instantly. Suddenly, a new notification pops up. Another constellation is watching him. The Disciple of Justice constellation is impressed by him punishing evil and sponsors him a buff. Kangoo finds the whole thing hilarious since he's basically a villain himself. He finishes off another goon, his movements becoming even more fluid with the new buff. Cha So-hee asks him if he really thinks justice actually exists in this world. She laughs at the idea, clearly finding the concept of being a hero pathetic. He gives her a cold, determined look that says he'll do whatever it takes. He thinks to himself that he'll gladly take the justice buff if it helps him kill more people, the blades glowing with mana as they whistle through the air. He takes out 3 more villains in a single leap, showing no mercy. He uses short-distance leap again, appearing in the middle of a group of soldiers like a ghost. He spins and lands in a low crouch, leaving a circle of fallen enemies behind him. Cha So-hee walks over the bodies, admitting that her instincts about him were 100% correct. They finally kick open the last emergency door and make it out into the cool night air. Kangoo gives her a final nod, ready to part ways. She looks at him with those intense purple eyes, clearly not wanting to let him go just yet. They stand in an alleyway, the sounds of the club raid fading in the distance. Behind them, more Eclipse reinforcements arrive, shouting for their scouts to search every inch of the street. Kangoo and So-hee move quickly through the shadows, staying 1 step ahead of the search parties. She asks him one last time if he'd be interested in working somewhere with a lot more freedom than a guild. She holds out a black business card, promising that the pay will be more than he can imagine. Kangoo takes the card and tells her he'll contact her after he deals with some pressing matters. He walks away into the night, leaving her standing there alone. Once he's gone, she taps her earpiece and says, "Yes, master." She reports that they've finished their work at the club and rounded up the merchandise. She smirks, telling the person on the other end that investigating someone is easy if they have a name. She whispers the name Shin Kangoo with a chilling smile, while Kangoo walks away, unaware he's now a marked man. Meanwhile, at the bustling train station, the crowd is completely unaware that a monster is walking right past them. Kangoo steps off the platform, his movements calm and deliberate as he blends into the city. He realizes that since So-hee didn't try to kill him immediately, he's probably not on the most wanted list quite yet. Still, he knows Eclipse is spreading its roots everywhere, and staying in one place too long is a death sentence. He walks with purpose, keeping his head down as he navigates the high-traffic areas of Seoul. He figures it's safer to use Yongsan Station as a transit point rather than going straight to the dangerous dungeon zones. He arrives at a hidden storage locker, tearing open a package he had delivered earlier. Inside is a fresh supply of Solasium, the glowing green plant that keeps his mana hypersensitivity from killing him. Since he wrote this world, he knows all the secret routes and hidden drop-off points to stay off the grid. He thinks to himself that having author knowledge is basically the best cheat code anyone could ask for. Suddenly, a man nearby is shouting into his phone, looking terrified and pleading for someone to stick to the plan. The guy notices Kangoo watching and snaps, screaming at him to mind his own business. The stranger bolts toward the station and Kangoo just watches him go, sensing that something staged is about to go down. Seoul looks perfect on the surface, with massive screens showing the world's heroes in action. But Kangoo knows the truth. The Junghwa Guild has a monopoly on safety, and they're using people's lives as collateral. It's one of the few places where the National Security Agency actually looks like it's doing its job, but it's all for show. He stops by a hunter market where the prices for gear are absolutely insane, but the quality is top tier. He spots a new weapon, the Blue Sky's Joy, and realizes his basic practice dagger just isn't going to cut it anymore. He buys the blade and immediately tests its power, channeling his mana into his grip. He crushes a solid stone with his bare hand, the mana surge proving his strength has reached a new level. He's satisfied. A strength stat boost of 50 is exactly what he needed for his next raid. The weapon also doubles his stamina recovery speed when he's out of combat, which is essential for his fragile body. With his new gear in hand, he looks up at the massive skyscraper, ready to move on his next objective. He walks through the streets, the new dagger hidden but ready, noticing a weird tension in the air. A young boy nearby points at something with excitement, completely oblivious to the danger brewing. A happy family is walking by, talking about what they're going to eat for dinner. The mother reassures the child that they're safe because the Manhwa Guild is there to protect them. Kanggu watches them walk away, thinking that this kind of blind faith is exactly what the guilds want to exploit. Suddenly, a woman's scream pierces the air, and the peace of the city is instantly shattered. A group of masked terrorists has appeared out of nowhere, grabbing the young boy while his father begs for mercy. The lead terrorist mocks the father, telling him that asking for a favor requires sincerity. The crowd panics, shouting for someone to call the National Security Agency. Kanggu reaches for his blade, thinking about ending this himself, but then he pauses. He notices a figure approaching from the distance, a man with a confident, arrogant smirk. The crowd starts cheering because Che Guanyong, an elite from the Manhwa Guild, has randomly arrived to save the day. Kanggu sees the system window. This guy is contracted with the Devil War Spirit, an evil-leaning constellation. Our guy realizes this is a total setup. Guanhong isn't the type to help people unless there's a camera watching. Guanhong strikes a pose and tosses a glowing card toward the terrorists with a flair for the dramatic. The terrorist catches the card, looking confused by the sudden gift. Guanyong tells them to take as much money as they want as long as they let the child go. The terrorists agree a bit too quickly, and the whole scene feels like a badly written play. As the child is released, the terrorists try to run, but Guanyong's heroic instinct kicks in. He catches the boy and asks if he's okay, making sure the crowd sees his kindness. Then, dark energy swirls around his hand, and he prepares to show the crowd what happens to villains. Kanggu watches with a cold stare, noting that Guanyong is a specialist in spatial swordsmanship. In a flash, Guanyong vanishes, leaving only a trail of black smoke behind. He reappears in the middle of the terrorists, his movements a blur of lethal elegance. One of the terrorists realizes too late that the plan has changed. This isn't just acting anymore. Guanyong swings his sword, a massive wave of spatial energy cutting through the air. The terrorists are sliced apart instantly, blood spraying across the pavement in a gruesome display. One of the men let out a final pained cry as his life is snuffed out by the hero. Kanggu recognizes the last terrorist. It's the same guy he saw panicking on the phone earlier. The guy looks at Guanyong in horror, unable to believe his boss actually just murdered him for a PR stunt. He begs for his life, pointing out that they were just supposed to be acting, but Guanyong doesn't blink. Kanggu watches from the sidelines, noticing that Guanyong is using a skill to muffle their voices so the crowd can't hear the truth. A scream is cut short, leaving only the sound of the wind. Guanyong sheaths his blade, looking every bit the noble savior the public wants him to be. He gives a small, humble smile, hiding the heart of a demon behind a handsome face. He tells the crowd it's safe now, and the people erupt into cheers, calling him a true legend. Kanggu turns away, disgusted but not surprised, knowing exactly how this game is played. He realizes the guild is using outside hunters as sacrificial pawns to boost their trust and monopolize the city's rights. He looks back at Guanyong one last time, his eyes burning with a promise of future retribution. He tells himself to enjoy the spotlight for now, because every opportunity Guanyong has will eventually be looted by him. Back at the Eclipse headquarters, an executive is apologizing to Cha So-hee for the lack of progress. He hands her a thin file, admitting this is all the info they could find on the escaped prisoner. So-hee flips through the pages, her expression remaining unreadable as she scans the details. Suddenly, her hand stops on a specific page, her fingers tightening on the paper. The scene shifts to a mountain path, where several masked men are guarding a dungeon entrance. The guard at the dungeon entrance looks at Kanggu's paperwork, confirming his identity. Meanwhile, Cha So-hee is staring at the photo, thinking to herself that Kanggu looks much more familiar than she first thought. Kanggu tells the guard he's ready to head inside, and the man steps aside to let him pass. The guard warns him that the dungeon has just been initialized, meaning it's at its peak difficulty. He notes that Kanggu is only level 20, which is way below the recommended level for this zone. Kanggu ignores the warning, knowing he needs to level up fast if he wants to steal the Devil War Spirit opportunity later. He sets his minimum goal to reach level 50 by the time he walks out of those caves. He gives a cold smile, accepting that he'll have to suffer a bit if he wants to grow this quickly. He steps into the dungeon and is immediately met with a violent sandstorm that rips across a barren desert landscape. The visibility is nearly zero, making it a perfect environment for ambush predators to hide. He realizes he'd be totally lost if he hadn't left mana traces to guide himself through the storm. Suddenly, the ground beneath him crumbles, and he narrowly misses a long fall into a ravine. He catches his breath, realizing the path forward is much more treacherous than he expected. A sharp noise catches his attention, and he spins around, his senses on high alert. Dozens of glowing red eyes appear through the swirling sand, surrounding him from all sides. A pack of rake lizards emerges, their scales jagged and their claws designed for tearing flesh. Kangoo draws his new dagger, thinking that if he handles this right, he'll reach his level goal even faster than planned. He leaps into the air as the lizards charge, their hisses drowned out by the roar of the sandstorm. Back at the agency, Cha So-hee is still reading the report on how Kangoo managed to escape his final pursuit. Her chief walks in and asks about the results of her investigation into the escaped convict. He suggests that Kangoo must have just been lucky to fool a level 100 hunter using a simple mana trick. But So-hee isn't buying it. She points out that the way he succeeded in his follow-up attacks would be impossible for a level 10. She stares at a photo of a blood-red magic circle Kangoo left behind, her curiosity turning into obsession. She thanks the chief and takes the files, her mind already racing with new theories. She casually mentions that she actually met the escaped convict a few days ago, sending the chief into a panic. She drops a bombshell, estimating that Kangoo's actual combat power is at least level 100. She summons a ball of fire in her hand, wondering what kind of materials Kangoo is truly made of. Back in the dungeon, Kangoo is proving her right as he carves through the pack of lizards with terrifying precision. He drives his dagger deep into the neck of a massive lizard, its blood sizzling against his blade. The creature let out a final gurgling shriek before collapsing into the sand. Kangoo isn't satisfied. He targeted its stomach but only managed to injure it, proving these monsters are tanky. He realizes he'll be here forever if he tries to catch them one by one. He looks at the remaining horde, noting that several of them are still completely uninjured. His eyes narrow, focusing on two specific lizards that seem to be leading the pack. He plunges his dagger into another target, but his mind is already on the next move. He stands amidst the bodies of his enemies, the sand around him stained a deep, dark red. He gestures for the rest of the pack to come at him, a cold, mocking grin on his face. The lizards hiss in fury, preparing to swarm him all at once. Kangoo stays perfectly still, noting that there's one golden rule to remember when hunting a massive group like this. Even if a monster dies, you won't get any experience points if you didn't deal enough damage to it. But he realized that if he manages to injure every single one of them even a little bit, the entire reward system changes in his favor. He charges into the swarm, moving like a ghost through the sandstorm. He uses short-distance leap, vanishing and reappearing in the blink of an eye. Every time he moves, he leaves a shallow but bleeding cut on a different monster. He's not trying to kill them yet, he's just tagging every single one of them for the XP payout. The lizards are completely confused, snapping at the air where he used to be. Once every target is tagged, he delivers the final blows, watching as the monsters dissolve into blue particles. System windows start popping up like crazy, announcing one kill after another. He stands victorious, his face lit up by the glow of dozens of level-up notifications. A final window confirms he has rapidly leveled up all the way to level 27. The scene cuts back to the agency, where the chief is still reeling from So-hee's revelation. So-hee is standing in the middle of a ritual room, looking at a strange pattern Kangoo drew on the floor. She notes that he performed a rite with actual blood, wondering what he was trying to achieve. She wonders if he was actually calling out to a specific constellation during his escape. Her phone rings, and she answers it with her usual calm, "Yes, master." She reports that the investigation is ongoing, and that the escaped convict is definitely not your average Joe. She then asks her boss to send one more person to assist her. She recalls how she got pissed off and killed the local chief because his information didn't add up. Back in the dungeon, Kangoo is walking past the frozen remains of the rake lizards. He picks up a glowing mana crystal, noticing a weird heat radiating from deep within the cave. He has a flashback to his days in the labor camp, remembering the backbreaking work he had to endure. He realizes that Cha So-hee has probably figured out his true identity by now. He grips his dagger tighter, swearing that he won't let himself be caught that easily again. Suddenly, the ground splits open, and a massive entity made of pure liquid fire emerges from the earth. Kangoo just smirks, telling the monster he's been waiting for this exact moment. He prepares his first major skill, his eyes glowing with the thrill of the hunt. He charges toward the towering fire monster, a tiny figure against a wall of flames. High above on a cliff, the masked archer from Lee Yaren's group draws his bow, watching the battle with intense curiosity. The fire boss collapses into a pool of water, steam hissing as its elemental body is extinguished. A system notification pops up. Kangoo has successfully stolen the Imbo fire element skill. He's now able to add fire damage to any weapon he carries, making him significantly more versatile in combat. The masked archer watching from the cliff is stunned that a level 20 could hunt a middle boss that quickly. He notes that Kangoo's hunting style is incredibly refined and efficient. He saw Kangoo lure the monster into a trap, using nothing but his wits and speed. Our guy led the fire giant straight into an oasis, using the environment to do most of the work. He even used illusion magic to trick the boss into running toward its own watery grave. A massive explosion of steam fills the desert as the fireman is finally defeated. The archer mutters that Kangoo really doesn't act like a low-level hunter at all. He starts to get nervous, realizing he might be watching a literal monster in the making. The scene shifts to Lee Yaren's office, where she's reviewing the archer's report. The archer asks if she really wants him to keep following this guy around. He's clearly intimidated by what he's seen, but Yaren isn't letting him off the hook. She mentions that his test results were good, but his low level is still a major concern for her. She orders the archer to step in and help him out if things get too dangerous. She gives a small smile, thinking that Kangoo will be a great help to her group if they can help him grow. Back in the dungeon, the archer sighs and decides he has to follow Kangoo deeper into the desert. Suddenly, a glowing shield appears in the sand, reflecting a direct attack from Kangoo, his dagger bouncing off a high-tech barrier. He admits that their defense is surprisingly sturdy, much better than the previous monsters. He's facing a trio of middle bosses, the rear, side, and front defenders. The three armored giants stand together, their shields overlapping to create a perfect hexagonal barrier. Kangoo is reminded of Lee Yaren's words about the importance of teamwork and team play. He recalls telling her he would handle everything himself after dealing with Heo Jung Tai. She had tried to recruit him full-time, warning him that dungeons aren't something you can always do alone. Kangoo had just smirked, telling her he has no interest in being tied down by a guild. He tells himself that it's just not in his personality to share the loot or the glory with anyone else. He uses short-distance leap to test the barrier from a different angle. He strikes the shield with all his might, but it doesn't even leave a scratch. The defenders move in perfect sync, blocking every single one of his rapid-fire strikes. He uses traverse teleportation to get behind them, but they've already predicted his move. Black smoke begins to billow from the defenders' helmets, and Kangoo realizes they're charging a skill. He activates Seize Vision, trying to find a gap in their collective senses. He also uses Shallow Chaos, but the defenders seem totally immune to his mental tricks. He leaps back just in time as one of the giants swings a massive shield like a hammer. He realizes that he's found the perfect distance to use his next ability. He focuses on the front defender, noticing that its individual shield is slightly weaker than the combined one. He uses Abduction, telekinetically pulling the giant forward and breaking their formation. The front defender stumbles, and the entire hexagonal barrier starts to flicker and fail. Kangoo dives through the gap, his movements a blur of lethal intent. He thinks about how working in a team would just mean he'd have to worry about people who can't even take care of themselves. He uses traverse teleportation again, appearing directly in front of the rear defender. The giant tries to raise its shield, but Kangoo is already inside its guard. He uses short-distance leap to build momentum, his dagger glowing with blue energy. He gives a wicked grin, telling the monsters that their patterns are way too obvious for him. Blood sprays from the gap in the giant's armor as Kangoo delivers a series of rapid stabs. The rear defender falls, and the other two are left wide open for his next assault. Two system windows appear. He's defeated two of the middle bosses in record time. The last defender tries to charge him, but its movements are sluggish without its partners. Kangoo leaps over its head, spinning in the air with his blade ready. He uses traverse teleportation mid-air, appearing behind the monster's neck. The defender swings wildly at the air, its high-tech armor useless against a target it can't even see. Kangoo mocks him, saying just kidding as he uses illusion magic to create a fake target. Kangoo delivers a massive, downward strike. The last of the defenders collapses into the sand, its energy signature completely vanishing. The giant groans one last time as the light fades from its eyes. Notifications flood the screen. He's just hit level 29 and claimed his final middle boss reward. He stands over the bodies, his new dagger dripping with blood as he prepares for the main event. He's shocked to see that the system is actually combining his stolen skills from the defenders. By taking side, rear, and front defense, he's unlocked a powerful new skill called Protection Barrier. The archer watching from the cliff is speechless, muttering that Kangoo might actually not need a team after all. But he tells himself he'll only be sure once he sees how Kangoo handles the main boss of the dungeon. Deeper in the cave, the atmosphere turns heavy as a terrifying presence begins to awaken. A monstrous ghoul with wild white hair and a sadistic grin stares out from the darkness. Kangoo steps into the final chamber and says, "We've finally met." The boss roars, but Kangoo just points his finger and smirks, telling the monster that its blood-burned skill was exactly what he came for. The chamber erupts in a hellish red glow as the battle for the dungeon's soul begins. The boss shivers with rage, its jagged teeth bared as it prepares to unleash a wave of dark magic. A massive dark purple fireball streaks across the room, but Kangoo uses short-distance leap multiple times to dance around the explosions. The monster isn't letting up, charging its energy for a point-blank blast that could vaporize a normal hunter. The boss narrows its glowing red eyes, realizing that this low-level human is much harder to hit than it looks. It tries to hide behind defensive magic, but Kangoo is already closing the distance with another lightning-fast leap. He bites down on a piece of solatium, frustrated that he can't find a clean angle to pierce through the monster's mana shield. The boss starts spamming fire skills from the front, turning the entire hallway into a corridor of death. A concentrated orb of purple flame tracks Kangoo's movement, ready to detonate the second he slows down. Kangoo knows that melee is the only way to kill a mage-type boss, even if it means taking a few hits to get inside its guard. He grits his teeth, knowing that if he starts bleeding, the monster's signature skill will become a death sentence. The boss reaches out with a clawed hand, preparing its most terrifying move. Blood conversion is a skill that turns a target's own blood into a weapon, and Kangoo knows it would kill him instantly if it landed. He retreats into the shadows, realizing he needs a completely different approach to get past those defenses. He watches the boss from a distance, noting that the creature has likely shown every skill in its arsenal. But Kangoo has an ace up his sleeve. He's only shown the monster his leap skill so far. The boss is overconfident because it has no idea what other stolen abilities Kangoo is hiding. High above, the masked archer watches the stalemate, amazed that neither side can land a decent blow. Kangoo notices the boss is getting annoyed, and that's exactly the opening he was waiting for. He stands his ground against another barrage of fireballs, preparing to unleash his own counteroffensive. He dives through a wall of purple flames, the heat singing his jacket as he pushes forward. The boss screams as Kangoo reappears right in its face, his eyes cold and focused. He gives the monster a chilling smile, knowing that the fight is already over. He uses Kidnap to drag the boss out of its defensive shell, greeting it with a whispered hello. The boss panics and tries to cast a spell mid-air, but Kangoo isn't giving it a single second to breathe. A massive explosion of dark energy rocks the chamber, sending dust and rubble flying everywhere. Kangoo uses traverse teleportation to vanish from the blast zone, telling the monster to cast all it wants because it won't change the outcome. He reappears behind the creature, his dagger glowing with lethal intensity as the boss realizes its time is up. But Kangoo activates his new protection barrier, the hexagonal shields absorbing every bit of the boss's power. He uses his fire imbue skill, his dagger bursting into flames as he plunges it deep into the monster's throat. A massive pillar of fire erupts from within the boss, lighting up the entire dungeon in a blinding inferno. Kangoo walks away from the charred remains, noting that the Imbi fire element skill is actually pretty useful. The masked archer is stunned into silence, realizing his report to the leader is going to be absolutely insane. Kangoo notices the archer has finally left, giving him a moment of peace to collect his loot. System notifications reveal he's hit level 32 and unlocked the Accelerate skill, a huge win for his build. The master of mobile warfare is so impressed that he sends another sponsorship, boosting Kangoo's experience rate. Kangoo accepts the buff, but notes that his own constellation is still acting like a jealous child in the background. He notices a glowing object in the ash, a rare item dropped by the dungeon boss. He picks up a massive green magic stone, feeling the raw power radiating from the crystal. He tucks the loot away, knowing that this single item is going to fund his next major power spike. Meanwhile, in a high-end apartment building in Seoul, the hunting dog Cha So-hee has arrived with her team. She reports to her master that she's found the exact place where Shin Kangoo was staying. She looks at the locked door with a wicked grin, telling her boss she's just going to burn it down. Flames dance on her fingertips as she prepares to search the room for any evidence of Kangoo's next move. Inside the building, another hunter looks concerned as he checks his phone, sensing that the situation is escalating. He sends a text warning that Eclipse has found the house and is actively searching for traces of Kangoo. So he and her goons enter the apartment, but she's disappointed to find that the place is already completely empty. On the other end of the line, the master of Eclipse chuckles, finding Kangoo's disappearing act quite impressive. He tells So-hee that this guy is making him want him even more, which catches her off guard. The master notes that Kangoo is both careful and bold, a combination of traits that are incredibly rare. He even suggests that Kangoo's cautiousness is something So-hee herself is lacking. He tells her that Kangoo would be good competition for her, which makes So-hee's eyes widen in shock and jealousy. She quickly asks if they found anything useful, trying to steer the conversation away from her own shortcomings. She picks up a piece of paper, a thin smile returning to her lips as she finds a potential lead. Outside, a hunter is on the phone, mentioning that the owner of the house is definitely a high-level hunter. So he tells her master to be glad, because she's found a document linking Kangoo to the Blue Eyes Guild. Back near the dungeon, Kangoo realizes that while the blood-burn skill was his main goal, the extra 50 million won from the magic stone is a nice bonus. He also picked up a ring to enhance bleeding and a warrior skill book, which he plans to use later despite his class. He heads back towards civilization, his mind already calculating his next move against Eclipse. His phone finally picks up a signal as he moves away from the dungeon's interference zone. He sees a message from Han Soyeon, warning him that Eclipse is officially after him and is currently investigating his past. Kangoo just smirks at the screen, thinking that Cha So-hee is fast, but he's always going to be one step ahead. He realizes that Soyeon's connections with the Listening Flower Guild are paying off, giving him a massive informational advantage. He's impressed by the intelligence power of a guild that works so closely with the Zhenghua giants. He predicts that if Eclipse has found his tracks, they'll be knocking on Li Yaren's door very soon. He knows Yaren won't protect him for free, but since her group is at odds with Eclipse anyway, she likely won't sell him out. He decides to stick to the plan and catch Heo Jungtae, boarding a train to his next destination. He realizes that this job is too big for him to handle solo, so he's going to need a specific kind of help. He tells himself that as soon as he arrives, he needs to meet that person before doing anything else. The scene shifts to an alleyway where a muscular man with a red beard is sighing in frustration. This is Yu Do-hoon, and he's wondering if he'll ever be able to track down the elusive Heo Jungtae. His superior tells him to drop the case, noting that the incident in Yangpyeong is technically out of their jurisdiction. Do-hoon's eyes burn with intensity, clearly not ready to let a personal grudge go that easily. He checks his high-tech watch, seeing that he's arrived at the last known hideout from the records. He walks up the stairs of a run-down apartment building, his heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. He knocks on a door, his voice booming as he asks if anyone is home. A young man opens the door, looking confused and asking who the stranger is. Do-hoon asks if Heo Jungtae is there, but the man just scoffs and asks who that even is. The guy claims he lives alone, but Do-hoon senses that something is being hidden in the apartment. He spots a silenced pistol sitting on the kitchen counter and knows immediately that this isn't a normal civilian. His eyes narrow as he asks the man point blank if he's a hunter. The man tries to play it off, asking if the gun is a problem in such a dangerous world. He claims everyone carries one for protection, and Do-hoon sarcastically apologizes for the intrusion. Do-hoon steps back into the hallway, sighing because he's come up empty-handed once again. But inside the room, the man's hand is glowing with blue energy as he grips the pistol, ready to kill the agent. The man prepares to strike from behind, thinking he can take out the NSA agent while his guard is down. Suddenly, a blade flashes in the doorway, blocking the man's sneak attack. Do-hoon spins around as the door is kicked open, his reflexes as an elite hunter kicking in instantly. The man let out a pained scream as Do-hoon's counterattack lands. Do-hoon realizes the guy was a professional gunner, mocking him for leaving the silencer on if he wanted to claim self-defense. He kicks the man across the room, demanding to know where Heo Jungtae is hiding, his blade pressed against his throat as blood begins to pool on the carpet. He tells the guy to spill everything he knows about Heo if he wants to keep his head. The man panics, claiming he only met Heo once for a job and was threatened with death if he ever spoke his name. He reveals that Heo is hiding discreetly, but has someone incredibly scary backing him from the shadows. Do-hoon is stunned by the mention of a powerful backer, his grip tightening on his sword. He steps out onto the balcony, wondering if that mystery backer is the reason the investigation was shut down. Suddenly, he hears a noise from the street and looks down with a look of pure shock. A squad of Seoul NSA agents has arrived, and Do-hoon realizes he's about to be caught in a massive conflict. He knows he can't go back yet, needing to get to his own hideout without being spotted by his colleagues. The agents are asking if he went this way, and Do-hoon realizes he's trapped. He curses under his breath, sweating as he tries to find a way out of the narrow alley. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to the agents, asking if they're from the National Security Agency. It's Kangoo, walking right up to the squad with a calm and confident expression. He tells the agents he was just robbed by a hunter down the road, successfully distracting them from the alley. Do-hoon watches from the shadows as Kangoo points in the opposite direction, leading the squad away. As soon as the agents bolt, Do-hoon takes the chance to escape in the other direction. He breathes a sigh of relief, thinking he just got incredibly lucky to avoid a confrontation. Kangoo watches the agent go with a knowing smirk, having planned the whole interaction. Back at his own base, Do-hoon flips through an old photo album, looking at a picture of him and an old friend. The two men look happy and triumphant, clearly bonded by a life of hunting together. In a flashback, the friend congratulates Do-hoon on getting a job in Seoul, where the real power players are. The friend laughs and tells Do-hoon to leave the local matters to him while he goes and joins the elites. He promises to take full responsibility for their territory so Do-hoon can focus on his career. He tells Do-hoon that they should both protect their own version of justice in their own ways. Back in the present, a floorboard creaks, and Do-hoon spins around with his hand on his blade. He's shocked to see Kang-gu standing in his hideout, the same man who just saved him from the NSA squad. He demands to know how Kang-gu found this place, his voice filled with suspicion and aggression. Kang-gu calmly says the name Yo Do-hoon, showing he already knows exactly who he's dealing with. He mentions that Do-hoon's estimated level is 362, and that he works for the Seoul NSA, which leaves the agent speechless. Do-hoon asks if Kang-gu did a background check on him, or if he's a secret agent himself. Kang-gu denies it, but says he knows exactly why Do-hoon is risking his career to hunt down Heo Jung-tae. He reaches out a hand and asks what Do-hoon thinks about working together to finish the job. Meanwhile, Lee Yerin is sitting in her office, looking bored and noting that Kang-gu isn't interested in joining her corps. She laughs, thinking that even if he's a lone wolf, he's such an incredible commission taker that she might recommend him to the hero Jang Shi-wan. Suddenly, the door is kicked open with a massive bang, startling Yerin and her guards. A pair of sharp purple eyes glare through the doorway as someone demands that they go back right now. It's the hunting dog Cha So-hee, and she looks absolutely furious to be kept waiting. She marches into the room with her team, telling Yerin that she's finally found her. Yerin stands her ground, calling So-hee a hunting dog, and asking how she dares to barge into her office. Yerin asks why So-hee came crawling here, but So-hee just tells her to stay calm because she didn't come for a fight today. She holds up a file, a sadistic smirk on her face as she prepares to play her cards. She asks Yerin if she recognizes the man in the photo, our guy, Shin Kang-gu. Yerin looks at the picture and is visibly shaken, realizing that her best mercenary is now in the sights of Eclipse. Back at the hideout, Do-hoon is still reeling from the fact that this stranger knows his entire history. Kang-gu explains that he knows why Do-hoon is looking for Heo Jung-tae, and it's not just for a reward. He asks again if Do-hoon is ready to team up and take the villain down once and for all. Do-hoon asks what the goal of their partnership would even be, still not fully trusting this kid. Kang-gu warns him that catching Heo won't be the end of his problems, it's just the beginning. He tells Do-hoon that he won't be able to handle the fallout alone, especially as an NSA agent. He points out how hard it was for Do-hoon to even get info on his dead friend, proving that the system is rigged. Do-hoon admits that the jurisdiction excuse was always a load of garbage, and his face shows the weight of his regret. Kang-gu asks why the NSA squad just happened to be there today, nearly running into Do-hoon during his illegal search. Do-hoon's eyes widen as he realizes what Kang-gu is implying. Our guy tells him the truth. Heo Jung-tae isn't just hiding, he has massive support from within the government. He explains that Heo's backer is big enough that even the high-level NSA commanders are acting as his personal guards. Do-hoon has a flashback to his chief telling him to stop the investigation, and the pieces finally start to fit together. He realizes that every time he got close, he was being sabotaged from the inside by his own people. He looks at Kang-gu in a new light, his expression shifting from suspicion to grim realization. He asks who the supporter is, and Kang-gu drops the biggest bombshell yet. Heo is being backed by the core leadership of the Junghwa Guild. Do-hoon is physically shaken, sweating as he realizes his entire worldview is crumbling. He tries to call it bullshit, but Kang-gu just shrugs, telling him he doesn't care if Do-hoon believes him or not. He reminds the agent that they both want the same thing, Heo Jung-tae's head. Kang-gu tells him to be at the city square tomorrow at 6 p.m. if he wants to see the target for himself. He promises it's not a trap, and tells Do-hoon to investigate the lead if he's still feeling suspicious. He tells the agent that in exchange for the info, Do-hoon is going to have to do one more thing for him. Back at the Blue Eyes base, So-hee is showing Kang-gu's photo to everyone in the room. Yerin looks at the ID and realizes Sung-kyu was just a fake name for the man she knew as Shin Kang-gu. She tries to play it cool, telling So-hee that she's never seen this person before in her life. So-hee snaps, screaming at Yerin to stop laughing and admit that she recommended him for a job. Yerin finally admits he was recommended, but says the conditions didn't match up, so the contract was cancelled. Her eyes glow with a green, predatory light as she tells So-hee to either fight her or "foff" out of her building. So-hee grits her teeth, telling Yerin she better not be lying before turning to leave. She slams the door behind her, the sound echoing through the base like a gunshot. Inside the room, Yerin's archer tells her that they need to assign some eyes to watch So-hee's every move. Yerin smirks, thinking that if she tells Kang-gu about this crazy beat, it'll only make their business relationship stronger. The sun shines over the city of Seoul as the deadline for the hunt approaches. A hand grips a phone, receiving a message that someone else is looking for Heo Jung-tae. Hio himself is walking through the streets, laughing and calling everyone stupids for not seeing him in plain sight. He strolls down an alleyway, humming a tune as he heads toward his latest hideout. Suddenly, he stops dead as a dark figure emerges from the shadows behind him. It's Kangoo, wearing a mask and noting that the target is heading home much later than he expected. A system window reveals that Hio is contracted with the Priest of Darkness, an evil constellation that hunts the light. Hio looks over his shoulder, his eyes wide with fear as he realizes he's finally been found. He tries to play dumb, telling Kangoo he's got the wrong person as our guy prepares to use C's vision. Hio clicks his tongue, his movements becoming a blur as he tries to dodge the mental attack. He leaps back and forth in the narrow alley, showing insane agility for a guy with a long ponytail. Kangoo is impressed, noting that Hio managed to dodge a point-blank C's vision and must have high magic resistance. Hio glares at him. Kangoo just stands there, perfectly calm, his eyes tracking every minor twitch of Hio's muscles. Hio realizes that since this kid knows his hideout and skills, there's no way he can let him live. He draws several long, thin daggers, his eyes burning with murderous intent. Meanwhile, across town, a massive explosion rips through an alleyway as an Eclipse goon let out a final scream. So he is standing over a terrified man, who is crying and begging her to stop the torture. He screams that he truly doesn't know who Shin Kangoo is, but so he just holds another ball of fire to his face. She looks bored by the violence, her eyes cold and empty as the man burns. She recalls how Kangoo told her he'd contact her later, only to disappear from the city within a few days. She realizes he recognized her from the very start and played her like a fool. She crushes a burning ember under her heel, her rage boiling over as she thinks about his cautiousness. To her, Kangoo is now no different from an official enemy of Eclipse. She's terrified that he might actually replace her and take her master's favor away. She giggles to herself, telling the darkness that it's okay to make a few mistakes sometimes. She says she's sure her master will understand her actions in the end. She smiles like a demon, declaring that she's going to accidentally kill Shin Kangoo the next time they meet. Back in the alley, Heo Jungtae is launching a barrage of throwing knives at Kangoo's back. He's shocked when the daggers bounce off an invisible wall, Kangoo's protection barrier. Heo is confused, shouting that he thought the kid was an assassin, not a mage with shield skills. Heo draws daggers between his fingers, his face contorted in desperation. He launches another wave of attacks, the blades whistling through the air with lethal speed. Heo is relentless, throwing dagger after dagger, turning the narrow space into a metal blender. He notes that Kangoo has incredible visual acuity, but is frustrated that the kid is just dodging and observing him. Kangoo keeps the distance between them wide, waiting for the exact moment Heo runs out of projectiles. Heo screams that he'll just hit him up close, but Kangoo activates abduction to reel the villain in. Heo is yanked through the air, his eyes bulging as he loses all control of his movement. He screams, "No! How?" Kangoo doesn't give him a second to breathe, activating bloody stabbing and turning Heo into a human pincushion as blood sprays everywhere. With a chilling calm, Kangoo explains that he'd already predicted every single escape route and planted his mana like a spider web. The visual interface shows the trap. Heo was walking into a cage of mana lines from the very start. Every single twitch Heo made was being tracked in real time by Kangoo's hypersensitivity. Kangoo's eyes glow with a predatory light. He saw the entire route before Heo even took a step. Heo lets out a choked scream as more wounds open up, his body finally reaching its breaking point. The coward tries to crawl away, thinking he can still retreat, but Kangoo stands over him like a literal grim reaper. Kangoo raises a hand, telling him flat out that any struggle at this point is completely pointless. He triggers Bloodburn, and Heo's own blood begins to detonate from the inside out. Heo Jungtae collapses into a bloody mess, cursing his luck as Kangoo watches with total indifference. Even while dying, Heo tries to act tough, screaming about the powerful people backing him up. Kangoo just looks at him and says, "Yeah, I know. It's Che Guanyong from the Zhonghua Guild." The shock on Heo's face is priceless, but Kangoo just tells him to shut up and go to sleep. He readies his blade, glowing with that signature blue light, to deliver the final blow. The scene shifts to the exterior of a warehouse as the sun begins to set on this criminal's life. We see the intense, burning eyes of Yu Do-hoon, the NSA agent who's been waiting for this moment. Kangoo meets up with him and asks why the other NSA officers were so close to running into them. Kangoo points out that Do-hoon has been using his dead friend's watch far too often for it to be just a memento. The watch screen flashes with an active account. Kangoo realized the friend's ID was never actually deactivated. He explains that the higher-ups wanted to bury the incident quietly, so they never officially reported the death. This allowed the corrupt bosses to keep the account open to cover their tracks and avoid a massive scandal. Do-hoon realizes that the ghost account was being used to track investigative info, leading the corrupt officers straight to them. Kang-gu looks him dead in the eye, promising that they can use this corruption to their advantage. The plan is clear. Do-hoon needs to use that account to collaborate and expose the rot within the NSA and Manhwa Guild. As the orange glow of twilight hits the city, Kang-gu tells Do-hoon he's a bit late for their meeting. Our boy is standing there, mask on, looking like the coldest operator in Seoul. Do-hoon demands to know where Heo Jung-tae is, and Kang-gu tells him not to worry. He reaches down and hauls up the mangled, bloody body of the criminal by his hair. Do-hoon is stunned. He can't believe Kang-gu actually caught a guy known for being an invisible ghost. Kang-gu explains he chose a crowded time on purpose, so that when the arrest happens, the public eye will be too heavy for the backers to interfere. He offers the broken criminal to Do-hoon, telling him that if he wants personal revenge, now's the time. Kang-gu's gaze is heavy, testing the agent's resolve to see what kind of man he really is. Do-hoon is visibly shaken, the weight of his grief and rage battling with his duty as an officer. Suddenly, a voice calls out, asking them to move aside for a moment. The park is full of civilians, and the pressure is mounting as more people start to notice the commotion. A young officer approaches, and Kang-gu prepares to hand over the package. The officer is ecstatic, asking if they're the ones who called in the tip on the legendary criminal Heo Jung-tae. Kang-gu simply says yes, holding Heo like a piece of trash. The officer is stumbling over his words, amazed that anyone could actually pin down such a slippery target. He asks for Kang-gu's hunter registration so they can process the massive 300 million won reward. Kang-gu taps his phone, finalizing the transaction with zero hesitation. The deal is done. Kang-gu hands over the criminal and gets his official thank you from the law. A notification pops up, 300 million won, and a dungeon lease have been sent. Kang-gu smirks. Getting paid to kill his enemies is the best business model. Later that night, Do-hoon stands by a wall, looking up at the stars and reflecting on the chaos they just unleashed. He admits he's surprised that Kang-gu gave up the chance for a clean kill just to let the law take him. Do-hoon realizes that his dead friend would have wanted this, to see the system actually work for once. He talks about wanting to believe there's still a place for trust in this brutal, monster-filled world. They both wanted the NSA and the guilds to be symbols of justice, not just dens of thieves. Do-hoon's face hardens. He wants to make the NSA pay for their betrayals. He declares that if Kang-gu is telling the truth about the corruption, he won't let the Manhwa Guild or the NSA get away with it. Kang-gu watches him walk away, thinking to himself that Do-hoon is walking the exact same path he wrote for him in the book. In the original story, Yu Do-hoon was the man who led a bloody revolt against the government. We see a flashback of the novel's version of Do-hoon, standing over a pile of bodies with swords drawn. He was a villain to the status quo and the ultimate enemy of the Manhwa Guild. The man was a beast on the battlefield, fueled by pure, unadulterated vengeance. In the novel, he got caught by Chae Guan-young, but this time, Kang-gu has made sure there are no traces left behind. Do-hoon looks at his watch, still a bit stunned that Kang-gu did all this for a reward. Kang-gu bluntly tells him he's not the type to do volunteer work. Everything has a price. But there's a darker reason behind his smile. The scene cuts to the high-rise office of Chae Guan-young, who is reading the report about Heo's arrest and his crippled limbs. The executive is furious, throwing papers as he realizes his favorite tool is now completely useless. The subordinate trembles, reporting that they have the hunter registration number of the person responsible. But as he looks at his tablet, his eyes go wide with pure terror. Chae Guan-young demands to know what's wrong, sensing that something is very, very off. The officer stammers that the information just vanished. Another account within the police force deleted everything. He loses it, smashing his desk into splinters with a single surge of power. He can't believe someone had the balls to play him like this. His face is a mask of pure rage, looking down at the trembling officer who's just the messenger. He screams about the incompetence of the Seoul officers, his ego completely bruised. The subordinate tries to explain they checked for suspicious characters, but found nothing, which only makes Chae angrier. Just as he's about to execute the messenger, a calm, terrifying voice tells him to settle down. A massive, holy magic circle appears in the middle of the room, lighting up the entire office. Descending from the light is Jang Shi-won, the hero of the novel and the man Kang-gu hates most. He asks Chae what's wrong, his voice smooth and condescending. He smiles, a perfect fake expression that hides the monster lurking underneath. Back in the alley, Do-hoon is still processing everything Kang-gu has told him. Kang-gu reaffirms his stance. He's a mercenary, not a saint, and he doesn't work for free. He shows off a new glowing item he looted from Heo Jungtae, noting that stamina items are essential for his survival. He tells Do-hoon that there is no better ally than the enemy of his enemy. Do-hoon looks at him, trying to wrap his head around this kid's logic. Kang-gu says he needs a sword to strike at the Junghwa Guild, and he's chosen Do-hoon to be that blade. He thinks about his role in this world. He's not the hero, he's the shadow that exists to make the hero look good. The imagery shows Kang-gu in the dark, with the glowing Zhang Shiwan standing behind him, the classic dynamic of a villain and a savior. Kang-gu decides it's time to head back to Seoul and prepare for the next phase of his plan. As he walks away, he reflects on how his life in this world has followed the exact dark path he once wrote. Ever since he possessed the body of the villain Shin Kang-gu, things have been moving with a scary precision. He realizes that the world is developing exactly how he wanted to write it in his darkest drafts. We flash back to the office, where Che Guanyong is still fuming, unable to track the person who ruined his setup. Zhang Shiwan mocks him, noting that Che seems to be in a particularly foul mood today. Zhang's eyes flare with a terrifying, hypnotic light as he commands everyone else to leave the room. The officers mumble in submission, their free will seemingly erased by Zhang's sheer presence. The two leaders sit down, the atmosphere in the room thick enough to choke a normal person. Zhang starts to speak, his voice dripping with forced elegance. Che complains that the tool he was using was broken by someone who clearly knew what they were doing. He's obsessing over who dared to strike at the Junghwa Guild's shadows. Zhang cuts him off, reminding him of a lesson he's taught him many times before. The aura in the room turns a violent, bloody red as Zhang demands that Che maintain some dignity. He looks at Che with utter disdain, saying it doesn't matter if a small pest exists or not. He declares with a sadistic grin that anyone who blocks their dream will simply be turned into ash. Meanwhile, Kang-gu has traveled to Buyong Mountain, following a secret tip from his own novel. He finds the entrance to a hidden dungeon that was originally meant for Zhang Shiwan to find and power up in. But since the author is here now, he's going to take that power for himself and leave the hero with nothing. He draws his dagger, the blue mana crackling as he prepares to enter the portal. He's immediately confronted by the middle boss, Jian Young, a tall, shadowy figure with 3 glowing eyes. The boss moves with unnatural speed, blending into the purple haze of the dungeon floor. It activates shadow steps, creating massive, looming silhouettes that tower over Kang-gu. The shadows start to split, creating multiple versions of the boss to surround him. A dark strike tears through the air, aimed straight at Kang-gu's head. Multiple shadow clones lunge at once, their movements a blur of violet energy. Kang-gu swallows hard, knowing that his timing has to be perfect, or he's dead. The clones slamming into the ground where he stood a millisecond ago. He readies a throwing dagger, focusing his mana for a counterstrike. The blade pierces through one of the shadows, its movements becoming more erratic and aggressive. He slides across the ground, creating distance while he analyzes the boss's patterns. He sees an opening, a split second, where the boss's mana fluctuates. He launches himself forward, his speed boosted by mana as he aims for the boss's core. The shadow boss tries to parry, its 3 eyes wide with surprise. Kang-gu activates Exchange, a spatial skill that swaps his position with a mana-tagged object. In a flash, he's behind the monster, his blade already mid-swing. The boss realizes too late that it's been outplayed, but it has one more trick up its sleeve. Kang-gu counters with illusion magic, creating a decoy that the boss attacks instead. The real Kang-gu is already above it. A bright purple spark of energy floats into the air, floating dagger icon above the remains. The energy flows into him, the boss is gone, and Kang-gu stands alone in the quiet dungeon, catching his breath. He checks his status, the fight was a success, and he's more powerful than ever. He explains his strategy. He used illusions to hide nearby while tracking the boss's movements through the mana web. His hypersensitivity allowed him to feel the exact moment the boss committed to an attack. And that's when he struck, the perfect counter-timing that defines his fighting style. A system window pops up. You have defeated a middle boss. The real prize appears. He's looted shadow steps at level max proficiency. The skill allows him to move instantly to any of his 5 shadows without needing a setup. Kang-gu smirks, thinking about how much better he'll use this skill than the monster ever did. His level jumps again, hitting level 33. He's out-leveling the story's original pace. He catches a falling dagger, feeling confident that the first step of his power-up mission is complete. But in the real world, Zhang Shiwan is warning Che not to get too comfortable. Che asks what he means, confused by the hero's cryptic warnings. Zhang stares him down, declaring that the world moves with him at the center. He is justice itself. He truly believes he is the only way for humanity to survive, showing just how far his god complex goes. Suddenly, Back in the dungeon, a massive wall of dark energy erupts in front of Kangoo. A new entity appears, it's the main boss, but it looks strangely familiar. Zhang Shiwan's words echo, "I am the protagonist." Kangoo stares at the boss, realizing he's about to fight a literal reflection of himself. The system confirms it. The main boss is Shin Kangoo, a mirror image clone with all his skills.